मैं जरूरत था बार वाला पहन लेता कैप, छोड़ो क्या करना है।
चलो गाइज, लाइव हो गए हम. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, अ वार्म वेलकम टू ऑल आवर ऑडियंस. We are back once again with our podcast, and in today's podcast we'll do a roundup of the latest happenings in the automotive industry, be it two wheelers, be it four wheelers, and then we'll also be discussing a few of the myths that have been created by some of the fanboys on internet, and busting those myths, whether there's some substance in them or not. तो इसी नोट पे चालू करते हैं. सबसे पहले क्या कहते हैं, द ब्रांड इन फोकस दैट आई वुड लाइक टू टेक इज स्कोडा. Two big ticket launches of 2022 announced. Slavia on the way, Kodiak already done. Please uh, start off with your thoughts. What do you all feel, and then I'll join in.
Yeah, so coming to Skoda, of course, Slavia looks more promising and more assuring product in the market with their MQB platform, and because of localization levels and all, I think it will gain some numbers. Let us wait, and we have to see how it will compete with the likes of Verna or Honda City. Coming to Kodiak again, as we look into the history books of Kodiak has always been a good product, more focused. It is not a like hardcore type SUV. It is just like a urban SUV with all-wheel drive option. So a very good and drivable car. Though I haven't driven the latest one, but we have to wait and we will see how these things go. Over to others.
Yeah, thank you, Shreyas. Thank you, Tanmay. Um, as agreeing completely with Shreyas as to what his thought process was regarding Slavia and Korea. Um, Although the news is exciting, let us see once the vehicle launches, once we get to have the test drives or we get to see some other reviews, we'll be able to be in a better position to understand as to what exactly and how exactly Slavia would deliver. For Kodiak, the starting looks promising for Skoda India entirely. Last year has been a good boost. This year, hopefully, it will gain even more traction, and this brings some exciting perspective towards the whole industry when it comes to the overall urban SUV segment. If we continue to garner such products with even more competitive pricings, we can certainly look towards a brighter future when it comes to the automotive industry as a whole. Apart from that, I would like to play the waiting game. So let's wait and see as to how things fold around. Yeah, over to you, Siddharth bhai.
The 4 months of production has already been sold out, as Skoda has been claiming on the media. So this shows that the value quotient it has played. So basically, the Kodiak has always been a good all-rounder because see, it is basically bridging the gap between your X1s and the Q3s of this world and the Tucsons and the Alcazars and I mean these compasses of this world, right? So basically, it's a bridge between the entry luxury and the premium products of the mass market brands, right? So, no, not surprisingly, see, it's a good all-rounder, even though that there has been skepticism on the lack of availability of diesel. The product, if it is accepted at even this price, close to the price of 30 to 40 lakhs, now the most of the people have to understand that it is getting accepted because the entry level products of Volvo, Merc, BMW, and Audi they cost a lot now. They cost a bomb, right? And the disposable income of the typical car buyer in this segment has not really gone up as much as high the prices have gone up, right? In the name of so-called taxation and thick profit margins by quick succession, so it has actually backfired. If you look at the sales of the 2 series or that matter or the Q2 for that matter, it has been a disaster in the market, right? Even BMW is struggling to sell the 2 series, Audi is struggling to sell the Q2. In fact, they have embarrassingly taken off the product from the website. There are some stocks left. It is two sizes smaller, right? Whereas Skoda, the product is playing the strength rather than the brand, right? Because people know that the product is good. It is actually a very smart move. Obviously, how much marketing Zach Collins has played is also well known. He's a very active guy on social media. The product is very capable. See, it is a myth that Indians don't like good products. You give them a value product at a competitive price, they will lap it, no matter how perceivability of the reliability or the the long term after sales service or the notorious DSG or whatever the myths are there related to the Skoda products, because Kodiak is a very well finished product also, being a CKD assembly. So no matter it is doing good, and I think a 2-liter TSI with an all-wheel drive, the 7-speed DSG is a good combination. What is required for our roads, that is more than sufficient. There's no need to go for a more powerful engines or even. See, today's mostly the turbo petrols are either as inefficient or as efficient as a diesel, right? But they don't have that much of a complex hardware when it comes to long-term maintenance cost of a diesel compared to a petrol. Uh, but then the complexity of today's turbo petrols are just as equivalent as that of a turbo diesel. But even in the long term, the maintenance cost will obviously be lower than compared to a turbo diesel, that matter. Diesel has already earned a bad name, uh, of late. But then on one side, you have Creta selling maximum in diesels, Harrier Safari being the diesel versions. But the market for Kodiak is not these customers. It is basically more of those rich, affluent families who want to have either a second car for touring, who are bored of Innovas, or an aspirational audience who cannot afford or doesn't see value on the next one or a Q2 or a V40. Sorry, what is this XC40, right? The small Volvo crossover it is called
Yeah,
XC40,
the XC40.
or the or whatever. I think if there is I think the E-Pace is not launched in India, right? The small Jaguar crossover. So whatever these entry level crossover vehicles of the premium brands, that is where these Tiguan and the Kodiak, you know, that is what the target market is about. So it's a good product.
एब्सोल्युटली अग्रीड. क्या कहते हैं, कोडियक का मतलब 7-सीटर है, लग्जूरियस है, फिट एंड फिनिश टॉप नॉच, typical Skoda, not Indianized Skoda as the Kushaq, although I happen to own one. But nonetheless, और दूसरा चीज़, कुछ लोग बोलते हैं ओवर प्राइस्ड है. मैं बोलता हूँ बिल्कुल भी ओवर प्राइस्ड नहीं. अगर ओवर प्राइस्ड होती तो पहली 400 गाड़ियाँ नहीं बिकती. अच्छा, कोडिया की बात हो रही है. लेट मी, आई जस्ट केम अक्रॉस समथिंग ऑन द इंटरनेट एंड इट वाज सेइंग, wait 1 second before I just move on. There's this topic that's coming in long lasting EV. IC is dying tech and all. Do you guys have something to say about it? So
It is too early to say that IC is a dying tech. I'll give you an example. Uh, a company like BMW. Okay, I'll not talk about India. BMW's global market size is more than 120, 130 countries, right? They operate in Europe, North America, South America, Asia, Australia, everywhere. Okay. And the net worth of the company is I think it's one of the top 15 automakers in the world, if I exclude the Mini and the Rolls-Royce brands. Okay. Now, if I am looking BMW as a business entity, right? There is still scope in the internal combustion engines. They are developing a new generation of internal combustion petrol and diesels, as what their news has been floating around on the internet. If you have gone through most of the international websites, they are developing new generation of petrol and diesel engines. It is not because the market is dictating it, is because adaptation towards electric will take time. Okay. Now, if I talk about what countries have now adopted to full electric, it is not out of this world's 190 plus countries. If you go to the top half of Europe, that is Norway, Sweden, Finland, the Scandinavia, these are the first countries who have been early adopters of electric vehicles. Okay, now not many people know that Norway has been on the forefront of electric vehicle revolution since 20 years. Uh, in fact, even the Reva that was exported as e-ways, it had a very good market in Norway. Norway, it was one of the top sellers.
नहीं बट
And
वहाँ पे ईवी की मार्केट होने के रीजंस भी थे ना. देवर आई मीन यू हैड एक्सेस टू अ लॉट ऑफ जियोथर्मल एनर्जी, यू हैड एक्सेस टू अ लॉट ऑफ water based energy, be it in the form of tidal
there
energy.
was also a product, it was called as the Think, TH exclamation mark NK. It was once promoted by Ford, which flopped actually. But then there were a lot of these. Okay, now it's a very long story about that market. There were about 20 brands. There was a class of vehicle, it was called as, in French language, it was called as Promobile. Promobile means it's a micro car. Okay. A micro car means 2.6 meters by 1.3 meters, something that was size like about the size of a nano I'm talking about, or rather shorter than a nano. 505 cc was the engine limit, 45 kmph was the top speed, and these three countries and even some parts of Germany, they were these companies actually then transformed into small electric vehicle manufacturers. So mostly Mitsubishi and Lombardini, they used to supply diesel engines, two-cylinder diesel engines to these vehicles. I'm talking 10, 15 years back, right? But when the emission problems came in, and then Norway government started to give incentives, see, it is not a big deal in putting a small electric motor on basically what is a pint size car. जहाँ मैं बैठा हूँ, about this size of a cupboard, a pint size car. Electrifying a nano is not a big deal, right? So they started the electric revolution, and citizens of Norway have always been ahead in terms of the quality of life and the environment friendliness, and the way future they see the future in automobiles. So it depends from country to country. Europe, Europe, I see is another 20 years. Okay, now Andhadhun, if you're putting ban like what Californian government is planning, or what some European governments are planning on the IC engines by 2030, it is a very stupid move. Stupid move is because not everyone is able to adapt to the EV tech. Even EVs are not less in terms of spreading indirect pollution, like the lithium-ion batteries, for example. Number one, recycling them is a challenge. You have the tech, but where to do it? Number two, the cost of okay, the range and sight is still there. Obviously, in the coming 5 years, you will see 1,000-kilometer EVs also, going by the pace at which the technology is expanding. Number three, right now it is still a stopgap. Now only the German automakers have a bespoke EV platform. After that, the General Motors would be coming up. They are already working on the Cadillac Lyric, uh, first of these cars, and then you have the GMC Hummer, right? And then you have the
Sorry to interject in
Thar.
between. This guy who's been, who's been very active on our live chat is posting some really strong opinions. So I would just like to discuss that. That one, that equals OEM revenue, they're supporting nonetheless. Last 150 years, oil mafia is pushing for ICE as it's in the benefits of the OEMs. Well, I just wanted to add to this. I don't know what you guys think about it. I mean, won't OEMs benefit in either ways when they set up their own charging stations, their own charging network? I mean, टाटा मोटर्स को देख लो या टाटा ग्रुप को देख लो, नेक्सॉन ईवी लॉन्च की, टाटा पावर के क्या कहते हैं चार्जिंग सेटअप की, तो रेवेन्यू तो उनको जाएगा ही ना.
See, again I tell you, देखो, जो ये ऑयल माफिया है क्या है, आई एम नॉट टू मच having much of knowledge about the oil mafia. Sorry for that. Fossil fuels, जो है fossil fuels, obviously the media says it is depleting, it is going down, but one has to understand that today versus Okay, if you guys remember, do you guys remember the oil crisis of the 1970s? I think so, yes. Okay, if you don't, there was a huge oil crisis in the 70s, right? 70s and 80s, where all these Japanese car makers they started to make big inroads in the US market. That was when Toyotas and Hondas, with their fuel efficient cars, made GM struggle. GM came out with all the nonsense they could. And then this thing happened. The Japanese, they started to dominate the market. This was just a short-term invasion, right? Then after 80s, it became normal. This is a part of what we call as an economic vicious circle. Okay, now everyone is running a business, even an oil company is running a business. Okay, now balancing the requirements of the public versus the government. See, basically, what is getting dictated? It is the environmental concerns. Okay, now everyone is sitting in different parts of the country, and Dubai for that matter. I'm sitting in 8 degrees of temperature with the heater on. It was compared to the past 4 5 years of the same time in January. I never had this much of cold wave as much as I'm facing this year. The rains have been incessant. Even the snowfall in the end of January is somewhat in cities where it doesn't happen is happening, right? The global temperature has already increased by 2 degrees. Snow caps in Antarctica are melting. The Arctic Circle is beginning to already melt a bit. So, do we need to understand that there are environmental concerns? There has been a push for lowest, least emissions as possible, right? That is why these fuel efficient vehicles are in demand. Okay. Now, uh, also upcoming the CAFE regulations, corporate average fuel economy regulations in India this year already. After April, this thing is going to start, right? So your fleet has to have, your fleet means your fleet of whatever vehicles you're selling as a one brand. Okay, I'll take an example of Suzuki. Suzuki in Europe has to hybridize its all. If you look at the Suzuki's lineup in Europe today, every car is now having a hybrid technology. 1 year back, it was not the same thing. They have hybridized the Ignis, the Vitara, the SX4 S Cross, the Swift Sport also, simply because it is the regulation that has dictated them to hybridize the lineup. In India, if you see, it is still banking on fuel efficiency. Now, if you have to have a good corporate average fuel economy or CAFE rating as per the norm that is required, it has to be done with a combination of petrol, electric, hybrid, diesel, like whatever you are at. You just cannot rely on a diesel lineup because your emissions will go in for a toss. A diesel is always a polluting engine compared to a petrol. Okay. EV is obviously a zero emissions. We are talking about the tailpipe emissions, not the actual emissions that is being produced in the combustion chamber. Okay, the tailpipe emissions. So if you're downsizing the engine by turbocharging and by doing all the torque at low down RPM, obviously your emissions will be less because you burn lesser fuel, right? You have all the torque, your engine works at a lower RPM, you are stressed less to drive, and then your emissions also go down. So all these devices that are being put into this, it is basically the automated dictation, simply because the environment has become a much worse place to live in. If hadn't this been the factor, you would have been enjoying those V8s and the V12s and the V10s and the six-cylinder engines on the entry-level sedans, which are not the case today.
Yeah. In addition to this, let us bring down to something very simple. As far as the point mentioned about 150 years of using petrol and towards the mafia and everything. Uh, let let's come down to something very basic. For us, electricity is a necessity as a whole. Let us talk about our own country only. For Britain also, when the implementation of EV was there, they only had the excess of 5% of the energy demand, while we were having a net deficit of supply as far as the demand is concerned. Now, if we don't have the demand to meet with the if we don't have enough supply to meet with the demand of people who need electricity to light up their homes, how do we expect to have electric powered vehicles on the road? Short term, and bringing mild hybrid vehicle solutions to vehicle is not something that I see it to be very sustainable. Whatever solutions we need to bring on the platform, it needs to be on a long term basis, on a sustainable basis. The sole reason why the IC engines have been able to run for so long till now is because for the last many years, petrol and diesel were the only options that were available freely to the global market. These were the fuels and these were the technologies that were readily available. It's not only about the environmental factor. None of us are, saying, or none of us are carrying pitchforks and saying that climate change is a hoax. It's not. It's very real and it is happening. Like Siddharth Bhai mentioned that due to La Nina this year, the average temperatures during the winters have lowered down. So however, one needs to understand that there are multiple aspects to any problem. You have your environmental aspects, but more importantly, if we come to the real world, we have our financial aspects as well. If I don't have the money to spend on an electric vehicle, why, in the name of everything that's holy, would I spend on an electric vehicle? I simply don't have the money. So once we have a sustainable solution, we know, every one of us knows, whether we like it or not, that electric vehicle would be the future powertrain. The challenge is towards the fuel cell capacity. Earlier, the problem was not with ICE engine, it was with the fuel, right? The technology has evolved over the years, but the fuel was the main talking point, because if you burn the fuel, you'll have all the exhaust gases and all the emissions that we would need to talk about. Similarly, in the case of electric vehicles, the problem or the challenge that we are talking about is the battery technology itself. Even if we talk about hydrogen is also something that is a bit complicated. So in order to we need to have more research, we need to have better developments, and we need to have substantial changes if we want to go back to something that is sustainable environmentally as well as financially, because both of those things are important. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and I would like to add to these things. Firstly, when it comes to EV, I don't think it is reassuring. It is something reassuring. Whether you talk about MG ZS EV or Nexon EV, we all know that what is the claimed range and what we are getting in actual. So these things varies, and we need to wait because technology will evolve further. Range anxiety is still an issue, and still EVs are not as sustainable as it sounds. Also, ICE internal combustion tech is not going out of trend. Already Toyota is working on hydrogen combustion engine. So we need to wait how technology evolves in that way. That's it. Thank you.
सिर्फ हाइड्रोजन ही नहीं, सिर्फ हाइड्रोजन ही नहीं, इवन पोर्श इज डेवलपिंग सिंथेटिक फ्यूल्स. तो ऐसा नहीं कि कंपनीज काम नहीं कर रही. बीएमडब्ल्यू खुद ही क्या कहते हैं, इज बेटिंग ऑन आईसी इंजन्स. नेक्स्ट जनरेशन ऑफ
बेटिंग ऑन आईसी इंजन्स. टाटा मोटर्स अभी सीएनजी लाए. अभी बायोडीजल की बात हो रही है. वी हैव इथेनॉल ब्लेंडिंग, फ्लेक्स फ्यूल, बाई फ्यूल. वी हैव मेनी थिंग्स, बहुत सारी चीजें.
I'll talk about two countries. Flex fuel जो है ना, flex fuel has been a very hot, hot the cars. If you go to the South American market, Brazil, Chile, Argentina, it is mandatory to have a flex fuel option in your lineup. Okay, now this ethanol and petrol, what we're talking about. Obviously, in those markets, Chevrolet and Fiat are the big players. These two are the best-selling brands in these three countries. They dominate more than 70% of the total South American market. These three: Brazil, Chile, and Argentina. I'm not too sure about Colombia, Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, these countries. But then the Fiat has an engine called as E.Torque, which they are making, and then you now have this new Firefly Flex 1.3 liter engine, which is there on the Argo, the Kronos, the Strada, and the upcoming whatever is the Pulse, that SUV which is there on the Argo platform. Plus even Volkswagen has a lot of flex fuel engines, so it is very old technology. Even the Palio which I have, that 1.6 engine is also flex fuel compatible. Like if I put in the ethanol E10 petrol, it can run on that also. Even Honda, when we had the Honda City, the third gen, they too used to advertise about the flex fuel compatibility on their brochures. So it is nothing new, to be honest. Okay. Coming to hydrogen, if you guys are following the American market, Honda has this F6 Clarity, fuel cell Clarity, which they sell, and Toyota has this vehicle called as Mirai. So they haven't been that successful now open up because mostly these vehicles are sold through lease route. They're not officially retailed to the customers. I don't know about the situation today, but they were being sold through this 3 year or 2 years or 3 years of lease. Then they were returned. So hydrogen is been almost like it's a debatable tech. It's the future, but how much are the companies willing to go on it? I have not heard other than Toyota or Honda, or I think even GM made a hydrogen vehicle, if I'm not mistaken, right? I don't know about that. Other than these two or three companies, I haven't seen any company investing on hydrogen. Now, if I come to electric again, uh, the companies that are now behind the EV are Japanese. If you haven't seen a Japanese EV which is currently on sale in big numbers, Honda has just started to sell its Honda E. Uh, Nissan very less, and then see it's again the Tesla which pioneered the big mass market electric vehicles like Reva did in India, even though Reva flopped. So Tesla, after it pioneered it, it is mostly the American and the German companies that are going running mad behind electric vehicles simply because they have got fat pockets and they have got markets where they can sell, like US, China, America, sorry, US, China, and Europe. These three are the big markets where people are buying electric vehicles, so they can take this risk. Tesla is betting big on China and Europe rather than India, right? If you notice, Tesla has been constantly bragging about import duty elimination for its vehicles. Like every government is trying to lure Tesla into setting up a factory, whereas he doesn't. Elon Musk doesn't see India right now as a worthy country to set up a giga factory. That is his interpretation, right? And that is one of the factors which has delayed the entry of Tesla in India. In fact, they were supposed to be coming last year, and even it's 2022, there is no clear pathway on when they will enter India, right? And then you have companies like Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce also developing electric vehicle. They're just testing the vehicle under the body of this coupe Wraith. I think on the Wraith coupe they are testing this EV powertrain, or it should look similar to the Wraith, right? Because they already have backing of BMW. BMW has been late into the party, but they are going aggressive. So Mercedes is now going aggressive into the EV. Audi has taken the lead in India. If you see Audi's lineup, e-tron, GT, the another sports car. They have two versions of sports car, two versions of SUV. The e-tron. They're coming up with more of these e-trons in the coming times, and it is received well. Now, just imagine, Audi has been received well. The iX that came into the country, BMW iX, the first lot has been sold out. The EQC, it has been doing whatever the volumes Mercedes was looking for. It has been doing good, and not surprisingly, if the EQS comes, the EQS is supposed to be coming anytime in April. Uh, I will obviously be driving the EQS. Let me tell you in advance, I'll be getting to drive the EQS with that big screen on the dashboard. EQS will not surprisingly also be sold out because we're not seeing the India as a, as a country of 135 crore people. Out of that, how much car buying population is there? And out of that, it's still very small, right? And out of that, you have people with a risk pattern of the PDI, the personal disposable income. They want to try new things. India is not a now that country which is hesitant in not trying the new things. Okay, that is why I'll tell you one thing. Maruti, Suzuki, they are still in their mindset of 80s that Indians are not risk. I mean, Indians are risk averse, which is not the fact. They know that the Nexon EV is taking their market. They know that the Creta and Seltos have eaten their market. They know that the i20 is on their toes. They very well know that the Merc and the Audis are putting big on EVs. But the problem with Indians is, even if Maruti takes 5 years to launch anything which other companies start and Maruti becomes a follower, right? I'm talking about the follower, it is going to create a bestseller because of that mindset. Okay. Now, if Maruti launches an EV in the price bracket of Nexon, say after 3 years from today, it is anyway going to outsell the Nexon. It's going to happen. That is inevitable. If Maruti launches a Toyota ke saath mein that Creta competitor, it is going to give tough competition to Creta because of that name, right? So Indians are still more towards the name. If I talk about the public which buys cars below 20 lakh rupees, above 50 lakh or 70 lakh, you can take the risk, right? Audi was struggling. People were saying Audi India chhod ke bhag jayegi. But today, look, they have increased their sales, right? Even Porsche, I think Porsche has launched the Taycan. The Taycan is already sold out. 2 years quota has been sold out. That was I have come to know because the cars are not in production. The chip shortage and global demand is means that whichever countries get more numbers, that is where the companies will allot the cars first, right? If I'm doing business for Porsche, obviously my priorities will be China and Germany and the US and India. India का volume कितना है? साल में 3 गाड़ियों का volume, 5 गाड़ियों का volume. There I'm selling in thousands. Why should I not allocate to them where they will give me more profit margins per car? Here, what I'm earning nothing because whatever the cost I'm launching the car at, 25% goes as the GST, 124% goes as the import duty to the government, and I'm earning nothing, to be honest, right? So there's a lot of mathematics involved in everything that we are doing. People who haven't taken mathematics in school, they must be regretting because I also didn't take much of interest in maths. But now I'm realizing how much the max of the numbers game it is today. It is about like anything range anxiety. It has a number. The volume it has a number. Profit per car it has a number. Market how many units I'm selling it has a number. What I am portraying for the next 20 years from now again is a number, okay? Because you never know what will happen in the next 20 years, right? But you have to plan your business in such a way that you are having options for every market in the world, for every customer in the world, okay? I'm not talking about the Indian market, I'm talking about the global market, because you just cannot survive on one country to sustain a long term business. You have to explore new markets, right? Right now where we are is we are seeing ourselves 20 years behind Europe. वो 30 से अब कम 20 हो गया because government is taking some decent strides. Okay, 6 airbags आने वाला है. But when you see the emerging markets, I'm talking about Africa. Okay, Africa as a market is still not developed for cars, right? Forget South Africa and Zimbabwe. Most of the African market now they are starting to have this craze. रशिया को देख लो, रशिया तो अभी भी हमसे पीछे ही है ना ऑटोमोटिव टेक में और प्रोडक्शन में, right? So there are markets where you have people who are slowly warming up to buy expensive cars. You look at Bhutan is going to be the next emerging market. You look at Bangladesh, Pakistan देख लो, पाकिस्तान भी क्या पता हो जाए, we never know. Sri Lanka again, our neighbors are prime examples. So you have a lot of markets which are actually emerging as a business opportunity. If you think like a businessman, you will get your answer.
हाँ तो अच्छा, since we are discussing a lot on this, we also have Mr. Bhagwan with us. Mr. Bhagwan, would you like to add something to this discussion?
Well, I would like to add बहुत कुछ बोलना चाहता हूँ, but I don't know if I can actually speak because I'm reading the comments and somebody say AC oil motor and but I would just like to reiterate a point that cars are not actually the biggest polluters. Automotive industry is not the biggest polluter, but animal industry is. So before coming out holding placards of banning ICE engines and all, just have to you should know that the animal industry is producing the most greenhouse gases, and actually they are producing what I can say methane, not even carbon dioxide. which is actually 4 times more deadlier than CO2. So you should probably leave your leather shoes, leather jackets, and leather purses, and then probably switch to something more earth friendly, and then shout on EVs and ICs. So अब ये ऑयल माफिया की भी बात आई है. If oil is controlling the world, tomorrow EV companies will control the world. कंट्रोल चेंज हो जाएगी बस, ऑयल से ईवी या फिर ऑयल से कोई पावर जनरेशन कंपनी. तो ये माफिया वाला बदलने वाला नहीं है. ये आईसीई टाइम टेक भी बोला है. आई डोंट थिंक आईसीई इज गोइंग टू डाई.
See, mad fanboyism for any form of vehicle or any particular vehicle is not really a good thing, or any form of technology in that sense. क्या कहते हैं, जो लॉबीज़म हो रहा है या जो लॉबिंग हो रहा है वो बिल्कुल भी सही चीज़ नहीं है. ठीक है, EVs will exist, synthetic fuels will exist, ICE engines will also exist in some form or the other. क्योंकि अगर BMW डेवलप कर रहा है, so I mean one generation of engine usually lasts for around 15 to 20 years. At least 20 साल के लिए तो the ICE engines will be around.
BMW has reiteratively said that they are not going to use IC engines till 2040.
Yeah.
चाहे जिसको पसंद आए ना आए.
हाँ.
BMW and the companies. Even मैं VW का किस्सा बताना चाहता हूँ. Sorry Tanmay. Actually, when I was in Germany in 2019, I guess 2018, one of my friends was working in VW. He was actually boasting that VW is going to stop IC engines by 2021. उनका सपोर्ट रोकने वाला है. VW is going to switch to fully electric cars. ये वो बता रहा था. So I challenged him that they will never be able to do that. And we still see VW and Skoda selling 1 liter and 1.5 TS in India and all over the world. अब तो डीजल भी मिलने लगा है वो Volkswagen का.
नहीं अब तो क्या अभी तो इंडिया में भी वो 1.5 TSI लॉन्च कर रहे हैं. अभी भी क्या कहते हैं 2 लीटर TSI आ रही हैं. गोल्फ GTI अभी कुछ टाइम पहले लॉन्च हुई, 2022 चालू हो गया. ये मतलब जो भी है माफिया है, कुछ भी है. और अगर देखा जाए, इट इज़ मच मोर प्रॉफिटेबल फॉर एन ऑयल कंपनी to sell crude oil or any form of fossil fuel that they generate, that they bring out for running turbines to generate electricity. They don't have to process it a lot.
Those same people are talking that VW is going to stop making ICE engines. They need to understand that before launching the ID, what was these vehicles? ID2, ID3, ID4, ID3 भी electric आई है. I mean, the names are so damn weird, I can't recall. ID3 I'm talking about. There were so many software glitches before the vehicle was launched. Okay, so I think those who have been following the developments of ID.3, ID.4 and अभी जो China में आ रहा है ID5 and all that. They were literally struggling for with the software calibration of the car. There were a lot of cars. It was delayed by a lot of months due to some of the other software issue. That is why it got delayed. Now see, if a company like VW, which has thick profit margins, they're a very rich company, right? They are facing this struggling because of small software issues. One can only imagine a company like all these new companies that are coming. If you go to China, there are a lot of startups, a lot of automakers who are doing small EVs, medium EVs, big EVs, right? So China too is a threat. But one has to understand China's long-term viability right now after this coronavirus. Chinese market is actually struggling. Okay, AliExpress has lost a sizable amount of its customer base in India. India was one of the biggest customer base for AliExpress. Okay, AliExpress also China has lost more credibility in Europe. Okay, Europeans are coming a long way in beating Chinese in their own game. It is not a rocket science to copy the technology, right? It's just executing how you execute it, right? So again, it's a battle for survival right now. Right now, what we're doing, what the automakers are doing. I'm not talking about automakers like Tata or Mahindra. They can survive on the Indian market itself, right? Because their expenses and their long-term the plants and the dealerships are not that much. If I'm talking about big global majors, the German companies which are working on a global network, global level, they are fighting for survival. Okay. Now you remember why the American brands, General Motors and Ford, why have they withdrawn from European nations? Because of this only. Okay. They are not able to make profits on their markets where you're not strong enough. Okay. GM has only started to make electric vehicles. Even if I talk about is the Hummer and the Lyric that is coming, and you already have the Chevy Bolt, the Bolt TV, and the Bolt whatever they had. Ford just now they started, but they are making mostly in the profitable truck and the SUV segment. Okay, that is where their strengths are, and the markets where there is no business opportunity, they don't have a suitable product, they are withdrawn. Whereas if you see the lineup of the Germans, Merck, Audi, Volkswagen, BMW, Volvos, Skodas, you have a body style for every budget. You also have a car for every customer, right? So you have a vast lineup where you can experiment. You can kind of experiment whatever you want. Audi has got so many SUVs. I'm not talking about the Indian lineup. You go to their German website, you'll come to know what I'm talking about. Audi has got so many vehicles in their German portfolio. Mercedes got so many vehicles. I'm talking about more than 40 different body styles: sedans, wagons, small sedans, big sedans, coupes, cabriolets, small crossover, medium crossover, big crossover, extra large crossover, sports car, convertibles. Like, you've got so many body styles. So that is where you can experiment with whatever with an EV tech on whatever you want to put it, because you have that spare cash lying up, right? And then you have a company like Honda, which only has the E on sale just because they don't have too much of body styles to experiment on. And then you have Toyota, which is just now starting to get aggressive because they were, sleeping. And then you have Hyundai. Hyundai has made Ioniq its dedicated EV brand now. What you see today, the Ioniq 5, the upcoming Ioniq 6, and then they are putting the same experiment on the Kia EV6, and then the Genesis will also get its own bespoke EV next year. They're already testing it. So Hyundai, the reason Hyundai has been a very cash-rich company, they are getting profits from America, from Europe also. Obviously, India being a strategic market, India, they are planning 6 EVs in the coming 10 years. Tata, obviously, they have been just got funded from a different entity. 15,000 crore rupees is not 1,500 crore rupees, I think. It's not a bigger, it's not a small amount. So you can afford to launch EVs. The thing is here, you should have options for every customer, everything that you have. My sales guy in BMW was telling me that the iX and this upcoming i4 4 series GT GC का जो अभी electric version है, I think it's called the i4. It had to come because customers were asking for it. If they didn't have this in their lineup, they were losing potential customers. This was what I was coming to. This is because even though you don't buy an electric, you have to get attached to the brand. Okay, so the only way to get attached to the brand is you need to tell customers, see, I've got a petrol engine for you, I've got a diesel engine for you, I've got an electric vehicle for you, and I've got a performance car for you. So you are free to choose whatever you want, even if you are going with a budget of 3 crores, you end up buying a 1 crore rupee car, or even if you're going with a budget of 1 crore, you end up buying a 2 crore rupee car. You have an option for the customer, right? Now, if I am going to a Honda showroom anywhere in Europe, I forget about the world. In Europe, I'm only getting this pinky looking Honda E. I want to buy something, say, like a bigger hatchback, like the Jazz, and I can only get a E-P HEV, that hybrid electric, whatever it is, that tech with the dual clutch transmission, IDCT drive. I'm confused. I'm not going to buy a Honda, to be honest. I'm going to Hyundai showroom. I'm getting the Ioniq 5. I'm getting the Ioniq 6. So I've got two dedicated EVs to buy. I'm going to Kia showroom. I've got a Kia EV6. I've got an EV to buy. So you need to have options for every customer because a customer is dictating the market. Obviously the chip shortage, I'm not going to talk about that. That like the manufacturers can dictate what they want because customers are willing to pay a price. Now, why did GMC Hummer EV exist? It is because customers wanted to have a high performance truck. They were not comfortable buying Teslas, right? So the moment Tesla announced this so-called cyber truck, everyone, it did take everyone by surprise, but then companies were prepared themselves. Now what you see, the Ford F-150 Lightning is on sale. The Maverick 2 will get an electric version. GM is getting the Hummer. The electric Silverado has just been showcased. If you guys follow the American market, the Stellantis is going to showcase a slew of EV trucks. Whereas what is happening with the Tesla Cybertruck, the Tesla themselves is not clear about how to even design it. I mean, their truck is looking so stupid. You
Tesla might
can't.
upgrade the company.
Tesla Cybertruck is the most stupid thing that I've seen till date. I'm going
But
on
it is
record
not
and
even put into production. The other companies have already
आज हो गई
announced production specific models of
आज
that. They are beating in
आज
their own game.
प्रोडक्शन रेडी फोटोज लीक हुई हैं और अभी क्या कहते हैं एक्सपेक्टेड प्रोडक्शन का बोल रहे हैं कि 2023-24 तक आएगी. मजाक बना के रखा हुआ है क्या कहते हैं
That is
Tesla.
that is why you need to watch what your competitors are doing and what the market wants. If you are smart enough, you will run the development of the product faster and you'll get it into the market. You'll beat your so-called idol on your own game, right?
Basically the thing is what favors Ford, GM or any typical mainstream automaker is that they are able to optimize their resources, optimize their production in such a way that or streamline like the right word to say is that streamline things and manage things in a more efficient manner than Tesla has always has had a history of messing up things, messing up production, be it with the Model 3, be it with the Model Y, be it with the Model S or the X. सारे गाड़ियों के साथ उनका प्रोडक्शन इशू रहा है, डिलेज रहे हैं, एक के बाद एक साल 2 साल 3 साल डिले हुए हैं. मॉडल ये साइबर ट्रक के साथ भी यही चीज हो रही है. Tesla is like the Mahindra of the EV segment when it comes to delays going towards production.
Mahindra had a first mover advantage if it went into core Reva, but then you see what Tata Motors did. They just beat Mahindra on their own game in the electric vehicle segment. Okay. Now, problem is that you are acquiring, you have everything ready on your disposal. Why not use it properly? It again depends on the helm of the people who are running the affairs.
I think we have a lot of discussion on this EV wala thing, and we have discussed a lot in past also. So we have many other things revolving around the market in the form of news or launch.
हाँ
And
अब वापस आ जाते हैं कोडियक पे
and हाँ
कि
ना not
कोडियक को
अच्छा बोलो.
नहीं वो बात रह गई थी, वो तो हम कमेंट्स में डिस्कशन चालू हो गया था, तो अब वापस आ जाते हैं कि there have been certain comments by certain section of the social media or fanboys of a particular brand or particular set of brands saying
Tesla quoted.
that a Mahindra XUV 700 is more value for money than a Skoda Kodiaq. I mean, I don't really see the point of comparison between the two brands in the first place. I mean, there is a limit to the limit. There has to be a limit to the fanboyism that is being showcased online. मतलब social media पे जो मतलब गंद मचा हुआ है ना इस सेंस में.
Packing so many features into what is a toy, right? And again, like I told you, there are two things. You are packing everything you could onto a package. Okay. अग्रवाल पैकर एंड मूवर का एग्जांपल लेता हूँ, ठीक है. अग्रवाल पैकर एंड मूवर का क्या है, मेरे को घर शिफ्ट करना है दिल्ली से मुंबई. ओके. वो मेरे को 3 ऑप्शन देगा. पहला ऑप्शन ये है कि आप 3 ट्रकों में अपना सामान स्प्रेड करके ले जाओ, आराम से हम आपका सामान ले जाएंगे, आपको पीस ऑफ माइंड देंगे, लेकिन वो डबल चार्ज पे हो. दूसरा ऑप्शन होगा 2 ट्रक, एक में डेलीगेट आइटम, एक में नॉन डेलीगेट आइटम, जितना टूसो, थोड़ा सा कॉस्ट कम करो, और लेकिन मैं नॉन डेलीगेट आइटम की गारंटी नहीं देता कि वो टिकेगा नहीं टिकेगा, आपको मुंबई पहुंचा दें. तीसरा ऑप्शन है एक ट्रक, बड़ा सा ट्रक, सबसे बड़ा ट्रक, और दाम उससे भी कम, सारा आइटम पूछ दो, फटाफट फटाफट लेके भी आ गया। मुझे इसकी भी टेंशन नहीं कि मेरा आइटम एक ट्रक में, दूसरा ट्रक आएगा, तीसरा ट्रक नहीं आएगा, क्या क्या नहीं है। थोड़ा सा पैसा बचा लिया और घर पे आ गया। गारंटी नहीं दे सकता कि जो मेरा माल है वो साबुत आएगा या नहीं आएगा, या कितना परसेंट आएगा। Option 3 is what Mahindra 700 is, and option 1 is what Skoda Kodiaq is. That is what I will only comment on that.
Yeah, of course, there's no point of comparison, especially if you look at the quality levels of Skoda and what Mahindra offers.
यार
Yeah,
यार
it has
सीधी
it has a
बात
lot
है,
of cost cutting. हाँ,
सीधी
बोलिए।
बात है, सीधी बात है। एक तरफ आपके पास एक गाड़ी है जो 60 से 70 से ज्यादा देशों में बिक रही है और अच्छी बिक रही है। वर्ल्ड मार्केट्स में उसको प्रेज मिल रही है, एक्कोलेड्स मिल रहे हैं, बड़े बड़े लोग क्या कहते हैं, जर्नलिस्ट उसकी प्रेज कर रहे हैं, गाड़ी बिक रही है। और एक तरफ है कल की आई हुई गाड़ी जिसके खुद के प्रोडक्शन के इश्यूज हैं, क्वालिटी के इश्यूज हैं, स्पीडोमीटर की स्क्रीन गायब हो जाती है। कहाँ से कंपैरिजन की सेंस बनती है? पहली चीज जब
Again, like what I said, I'll tell you the psyche of Indian market. Okay, I'm not talking about as an owner of two obsolete cars which I drive. As a trending owner of today's cars, okay. Like I said, who is the customer base of Kodiaq? The customer base of Kodiaq is not the 700 owner. The customer base of Kodiaq is that one who is looking to buy an X1 or a Q3. He cannot afford, number one. Number two, he has some expensive cars in his garage, say something like a Bentleys or Mercs, right? He wants a crossover which he can drive to daily, daily drive, and he can take his family, along, and he doesn't want to spend much. उसको एक लो प्रोफाइल रखने की, मेरे पास ये ऑडी नहीं है, just want to have a low profile. Okay, number 3 is an aspirational customer who is dreaming to buy something from a semi-luxury brand. Okay, these 3 segment of customers, they will obviously not be looking at the XUV 700 in the first place. Understand the logic, what I said. Aspirational customer who is looking to buy something semi-luxury, or a second or a third car for a rich affluent person, और someone is looking to buy an X1 or a Q3, brand चाहिए थोड़ा सा high end पर वो afford नहीं कर सकता, right? 700 is for those people who want to have everything for the sake of having everything, right? Okay, everything for the sake of having everything. मेरे को ज्यादा फूकना भी नहीं है, मैंने एक ब्रोशर खोला, उस पर देख लिया, मेरे को एड्रीनॉक्स मिल रहा है, मेरे को सोनी का सिस्टम मिल रहा है 12 स्पीकर वाला, मेरे को इतना बड़ा स्क्रीन मिल रहा है, मेरे को एक छोटी सी गाड़ी दिखने में मिल रही है जो दिखने में अच्छी है भी नहीं पर फिर भी अच्छी है, और इंडियन मैन्युफैक्चर्ड है, एंड गिज्मो से भरा हुआ है, गिज्मोज, सस्ता गिज्मोज, राइट? चले ना चले मेरे को उससे कोई मतलब नहीं है. दैट इज व्हाट a 700 customer is, right? It can appeal to anyone, whether I'm living in Delhi or I'm living in third great city of Bihar, UP, Haryana. No offense to be taken. Or it can appeal to me if I'm living in, somewhere in Rajasthan, somewhere in South, where I need to show off and I need to have a lot of features. I need to have that one vehicle which can take me everywhere I want. Without the need to spend too much. I don't care a shit about reliability. Obviously, I know ये दिक्कत आएगी, but then 99% of the public who was not into these forums or the discussion or the or understanding the media, they don't know about it, so they will go and run behind it because उनको feature मिल रहा है, right? मेरे को A B C D E F G H I J K L M N O P Q R S T U V W X Y Z सब मिल रहा है, तो मेरे को भारी महिंद्रा और मेरा प्रोडक्ट खरीदो. What do you think, Tanmay, Shreyash and Anirudh, if I'm living in, say, a city like, what is this, Etawah, right? If I'm living in Etawah or if I'm living in Banaras, Allahabad, Patna and all that, मेरे को पता है टीम बीएचबी क्या है, मेरे को पता है ऑटोट्रॉनिक्स क्या है, मेरे को पता है ऑटो क्या है, मेरे को पता है कि यूट्यूब क्या है, मेरे को तो पता ही नहीं सब क्या है। मेरे को दिख रहा है अभी मेरे सामने महिंद्रा
नहीं
का
नहीं
शोरूम है।
नहीं नहीं
मे-
वो सेंस में नहीं, वो सेंस में नहीं,
मेरे
मतलब क्या
को
कहते
सुन
हैं।
ले, लिसन तन्मय लिसन,
हाँ
मेरे सामने एक शोरूम है, मेरे को दिख रही है कि लाजवाब गाड़ी है, इतनी बड़ी दिख रही है, इसमें इतना कुछ भरा हुआ है, और मैं जाके ले लिया, ठीक है। मेरे को तो ये तक नहीं पता कि स्कोडा क्या है। दूसरी कैटेगरी वो है, have you heard of something called as keyboard warriors, which are obviously being which we are seeing since a decade now. It started from the diesel Swift versus Punto, then came out with Maruti Hyundai, then came out with Tata Mahindra and this and that and all that nonsense. ये इनका काम है, ठीक है। और लोग ऑब्वियसली बात है कि I will also be trolled for calling a keyboard warrior as I do myself indulge in some kind of I say that. ये उनका काम है, ओके। कंज्यूमर जो है जिसने एक्चुअल में खरीदनी है, जब वो पैसा डालने से पहले देखता है कि मेरे को 40 लाख में जब ये मिल रहा है, एक क्लास गाड़ी मिल रही है, तो मैं 10 लाख रुपए कम बचाने के चक्कर में एक्सयूवी क्यों लूं? इट डजंट मैटर टू हिम। Let us be logical. Let us think from the point of view of a car buyer, okay? We are not talking from the point of view of a media guy or enthusiast guy, okay? If I'm a car buyer, if I'm buying a Kodiaq, means I'm buying a Kodiaq, right? Why should I even consider an XUV 700? What is that? If I'm buying a BMW X1, I will buy an X1. Why should I consider a Skoda Kodiaq? If I'm buying a BMW M3 Coupe, I will buy an M3 Coupe. Why will I buy a Porsche Cayman GT4 or whatever that it is, right? So these vehicles, a vehicle which is selling 4,000 units a month versus a vehicle selling 100 units a month, इसके कस्टमर ही अलग होते हैं। इट हैज अ श्योर शॉट कस्टमर की मेरे को लेने ही लेनी। अब टिगवान की मैं बात करता हूँ, टिगवान भी ऑब्वियसली प्राइस ज्यादा है। आई एम नॉट टू हैप्पी विद द प्राइसिंग बिकॉज इट डजंट हैव सो मच the equipment worthy of 35 lakh rupees. A Compass is better equipped than a Tiguan. But then there are people who are buying Tiguans, right? 50 बेचे, 100 बेचे, वो उनकी मर्जी है कितना बेचे। उनका काम क्या है? सीकेडी से फैक्ट्री चलानी है। They are already
ऑक्टाविया भी तो बिक ही रही है।
they're
ऑक्टाविया भी तो
already
32 लाख में
assembling
बिक रही
7-8 vehicles on that Aurangabad factory, so that is happy to keep them afloat, right? So that is why they are not concerned about much of the sales or much of the marketing and all that. So that is why ठीक है 100 बेचे, ठीक है हम कुछ है। Whereas for a company like Mahindra के लिए क्या है? Every sale of XUV that is lost is hurting their profit because they have a long list of non-performers. Bolero, Scorpio, XUV 700, XUV 500 and Thar, ये इनकी बिकती है। Whereas if you start calling a KUV 100, then you have the Marazzo, then you have the Bolero Neo, और what इनकी 3-4 गाड़ी 5-6 गाड़ियां वो बिकती नहीं है। So that is again the product mix, right? Fresh products इनकी इतने नहीं जितने टाटा की देखो all the products are fresh, right? So that is why the thing is, if the people are writing, let them write, okay? People were at one time writing that Polo is better than the N line. We even had a debate on it. Today, if you see 0 to 100 or 0 to 200 is not everything, okay? You will never see manufacturers bragging about the outright acceleration timings as much as they brag about the Nürburgring lap timings. Okay, if you are a buyer of a high performance sports car, a knowledgeable buyer, I'm not talking about those Fukra buyers who buy 6-hand Audi R8s and go to the stupid exhaust shop and molest it. A sensible supercar buyer, right? He's going to ask you what is my car's Nürburgring lap timing, because he is looking for handling. He's not looking for 0 to 100. Okay, that is where this thing is. I'll give an example. NSX-R, it used to make only 290 horsepower, okay, from the 3.2 liter V6 VTEC. and the NSX was launched in 1989. NSX-R, the first iteration, came in 1992, and NSX-R was also there in 2002, right? This 2002 NSX-R, which has its roots dating back to 1989, the basic chassis and the engineering, it had a similar lap timing as that of a Ferrari 360 Challenge Stradale, which made 100 HP more than the NSX-R. Can you believe that? The 360 Challenge Stradale used to make close to 400, 390, 400 HP, and the NSX-R. Both of them have similar Nürburgring lap time if you look at the internet. It means that numbers are not everything. It means how you're delivering the power and how intelligent you are to your driving skills and how well the car handles. Right. That is what it is about. Now everyone in my community is saying कि Abarth Punto पे Wolf Moto का map लगाओ, Wolf Moto का map लगाओ, ये लगाओ, as I'm running a quantum map. Okay. I'm getting a good fuel efficiency, I'm getting good drivability, I'm getting good performance. Okay. Just because others are running behind that multiple three maps and all that 91 octane, 95 octane, 99 octane, why should I waste 28,000 rupees unnecessarily when it's not required? Number one. Number two, out of 365 days a year, right, you are not participating in a drag event. You're a daily commuter car. Okay. Nor you have to show your car to State Tuned India, because State Tuned India is now covering something like, if my car has got ceramic coating, it's considered as a mod. Okay, if my car has got I will not comment on that. आजकल के post देख लेना, this is more than sufficient for you to understand what I'm talking about. Ceramic coating को mod बोल रहे, which is nonsense. If I had to do 3 days का drag, okay, event है, 3 दिन में जाता हूँ, उसके लिए जस्ट बिकॉज चलो एक बार में हार गया, एक बार में जीत गया, मेरे रोज के ड्राइविंग में से क्या फर्क पड़ रहा है? Am I winning any cash prize or am I winning any reward up by bragging about that my car has got this much? Instead, if my daily car goes in for that autocross or whatever the drag race, I am myself molesting my components, wear and tear, tires, brakes, everything, right? हम लोग अभी उस कैडर के नहीं कि हम फालतू में पैसे बर्बाद करें behind all this. You have faltu ka paisa, you have a car built for that, you can do it, not as a daily drive. Just because you're driving an Abarth Punto or a Pali 1 does not mean that you should, brag about drags or the tracks and all that. It is meant to be enjoyed, driven, even when you're driving it daily, right? Coming back to the 700 versus Kodiak, it is not logical. So whatever the keyboard warriors are writing, let them write. You just have your popcorns and enjoy the fun. It is their time. For you, it's an entertainment. That is what I'll comment.
So yeah, I think I agree with Sid Viya's comment, and let them write whatever they are writing. We have some other things revolving around the market, and one of those is iCNG launch. Again, launch of the week. Tata Motors has considered iCNG bringing in market with 5 pillars, like what they are projecting: incredible performance, intelligent safety, intelligent impressive features, and all that thing, marketing terms, whatever they are using. So would like to know
Impress हो
from you,
जाओगे.
हाँ, impress हो जाओगे. So how do you see CNG market as of now, and क्या कोई personal use या customer अपने personally as a family car उसको consider करेगा? What do you all think?
740 रुपए में चंडीगढ़ से दिल्ली आना मेरे लिए बहुत है कि सीएनजी का मैं कन्वर्ट, ऑब्वियसली इट्स नॉट अ प्राइमरी कार, राइट? But then of late it makes a lot of sense. Again, forget the enthusiast part. We come to the middle class customer, okay, already bearing the brunt of petrol prices, right? Already bearing the brunt of the high car cost, acquisition cost, already bearing the brunt of job security, already bearing the brunt of COVID. That is why he's scared of traveling in public transport. मैंने आपको 4 रीजन तो दे दिए. already bearing the brunt of lack of options in the car which doesn't have the feature he wants. पांचवा मैंने आपको option दे दिया. Already bearing the brunt of buying a substandard variant like what Maruti is doing or Hyundai is doing, right? Magna में कर रहे हैं या LXI में कर रहे हैं या S में कर रहे हैं, ऊपर कुछ नहीं दे रहे हैं. So Tata has killed all these 6 birds with one stone. You have got an option of lower variant, higher variant, equipment आपके हिसाब से. I would even say that price has been realistic. Okay. Obviously, the so-called Celerio fanboys will not agree, बोलेंगे Maruti बिकेगी and all that nonsense. But then the Tiago is a more complete product. Look at the product. Look at the packaging. Look at the finesse. Don't discount it because it's a Tata car. Okay. A bigger engine will always run better on a CNG than the one with a smaller engine, just because the capability to handle the the downs the power loss जो होता है उसमें, that is better with the big engines. CNG tech has come a long way since the first CLO that was launched in 2000. 22 साल से तो हम देख रहे हैं उसको ना. CNG CLO has been on sale, but that time the technology was not evolved even. It was a lot of compromises per there. But today, if you see CNG has become a mainstream fuel everywhere it is available, so it makes a lot of sense. Like again I said, options, electric, alternate fuel, you have to invest on that. Now, what I don't like was that Tata took so long to launch it. They took their own time because Maruti and Hyundai have already been selling these cars to these, right? Coming to the boot space, you have to take a compromise. You either have to, boot space has always been a compromise on all the cars, not just related to the Tiago. Every hatchback that you see has always been a compromise on the boot space.
But Tiago iCNG का ना एक चीज है कि unlike other brands which only sell CNG in the bare bones trims, इसमें मतलब the variant spread is quite a lot. You can get a bare bones variant.
उसका एक रीजन है, for what I understand, and I think everybody would agree with me. CNG and Siddharth Bhai would also agree with me. We know that especially in Delhi, CNG का जो adoption rate है, that has been the highest, और Delhi है एक तरीके से जहाँ पे हो रखा हो. And unfortunately, धीरे धीरे over the years, when we first started with all the centros जहाँ पर आप बाहर से you were able to install the CNG kits, then Maruti started to provide CNG within the cars, and those cars, the personal family cars, turned into taxis. With implementation, with coming of Uber and Ola and other taxi services, and especially in Delhi area, because Maruti and Hyundai realized that the most of the buyers of these vehicles would run it as taxis, and they do not look behind the features. That's why we will only provide the bare minimum boards of features to the vehicle. Tata was able to identify the gap in that segment. Everybody else thought that they would either buy a diesel or they would buy petrol, because then again, in today's time, if you go and fill your CNG vehicle, the line is so long, 1 घंटा 1.5 घंटा लगता है CNG भरवाने में. So taking that into consideration, they had their own market research उस हिसाब से. And this is where I believe Tata was smart enough to see that even if there are a lesser number of buyers for car because of these reasons, you would be able to provide a product that would be able to fill that gap.
I'll show you something.
And that,
I think I can't rotate my camera because there's no option. Can you see this photo of the CLO CNG on the computer which I've just shared with you?
Yes.
Yes.
Something is written. CNG has a high octane rating of 120 compared to the 87 octane we in India are habituated to. Okay, so this is number one, that makes it a much more cleaner fuel to burn. Okay. So this was one of the articles from Autocar India's March 2000 issue, which I got it. So again, it says it was cheaper than taking a bus, right? And this was how the company fitted CNG used to look 22 years back, right? You can see here there's a pressure gauge, the engine of the CLO I'm showing you. The pressure reducer is somewhere here. This is the gas air mixer, and this is the hose low pressure. You can see it here. If you can see it clearly, I don't have a proper copy of the magazine, right? And again, here it is this fuel selector, which is pretty crude. But then today, 22 years back, the tech was not so advanced, right? And here, how you used to fill the CNG on the CLO, right? So if we're talking about, you know, the running cost, it is less than, it says it is just free, 16.2 kilometers. That time it was 14 per 80 per kg or rupee. So it is about just about the price of a mineral water bottle. So that is how the cheap the CNG was since beginning. But what people have not understood was the execution because of the safety reasons and the way the Jugaad installation was done. Now, always a company, when they made the CNG cars, they have the bespoke assembly line. Suspensions are modified accordingly to the, you know, according to the need of the vehicle. So company fitted is always better. And then you even have, if you've seen the Tiago CNG, the filling nozzle is on the fuel tank. You open the lid of the tank, it is just next to the petrol tank, right? Plus, you even have the intelligent mode where you can start the vehicle on CNG, and unlike other cars where you need to switch to
Yeah,
petrol,
yeah.
so you can start it on CNG. You can switch to the alternate fuel as and when you want. Quite a lot of intelligent features are that it even stops the flow of the gas if it detects any leak. So there is a safety also. So I would say it should exist, and difference of 90K is reasonable considering an aftermarket kit itself cost about 60ish with the GST and everything. Uh, I think it should be there. A lot of even Vitara Brezza, the next one that is coming, is also getting CNG. Lot of customers are there. It's not that the CNG doesn't have a good penetration. A middle class customer, right? Uh, just about a family of three, they will forego the boot space. For them, it is a compromise. They can travel with the roof luggage carrier or the one on the rear seat, but then it makes a lot of sense. I was an anti CNG guy until and unless I saw two runs which I did from Chandigarh to Delhi, Delhi to Chandigarh, just realized for the two of us how economical it happened, right? So that is where it happens. Obviously, that was not a primary car; it's a beater car which we did the run on. Obviously, at Tiago, it was on a aftermarket gasket base model, but then we look ourselves as a buyer from a middle class perspective or a lower income group perspective. It makes a lot of sense. After 4 years, when you see these cars in second hand market, you're going to go for very cheap, and again, it will make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I would like to add कि audience के साथ क्या होता है ना कि they see features. Although Tata Motors has addressed all these problems of having features in a CNG car, and also about the safety. उसमें उन्होंने एक चीज ये भी बताई कि they are using NGV1 receptacle nozzle, like it is European, it is certified by European standards and something like that, for faster refilling and refueling. There are many things which are different from what Maruti is offering you in their CNG cars. So it is very important that we educate our audience in that way. Features are important, but what is more important in CNG cars is how your CNG tech is running, how much advancements has been made, and how much safer it is. What is the way of working, like direct start in CNG? You are getting 73 PS of power in CNG mode, so it can climb ghats easily. Although I'm yet to drive one, but yeah, so this is very useful. So
कई
Tata
लोग तो
Motors.
ये भी लिखते हैं ना, कई लोग तो कीबोर्ड वॉरियर ये भी लिखते हैं कि 100 पहुंच पाएगी नहीं पाएगी करके. देयर आर सम किड्स, देयर आर सम idiots who even write on WhatsApp that will it reach 100 or not. अरे what kind of idiots you are, you can't even drive a car properly and then you're asking कि वो गाड़ी 100 पहुंच पाएगी नहीं पहुंच पाएगी. That is the kind of so-called car guys that we are facing. That is the problem is, you're not driving the car and it is saying can it reach 100 or not just because it's a CNG Tiago. So when you have these kind of toxic people ruining the car community, that is why some of us do turn into keyboard warriors. So that is again, like I told you, another reason why the car scene is becoming worse.
Yeah, I mean, जो लैक ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन है, वही है कि हम ऑडियंस को अपने एजुकेट करें, rather than focusing on features in a CNG car. Let us focus on what technology and how much safer they have made Tiago and iCNG जो भी कर रहे हैं, and of course price is very reasonable. So Anirudh ji, anything from your side on iCNG?
Like I've mentioned earlier, and like everybody has mentioned as well, interesting perspective, something that everybody will look forward to, a very good filling of the gap in the market. And I think Tata took its time because I believe Tata was not in the position to do this earlier. I may be wrong, or there might be some other reasons, but from what I see over the last few years as to how Tata has developed and how Tata has grown in the terms of sales. तो उस हिसाब से आई थिंक दैट देर आए दुरुस्त आए, better late than never. And I believe even if Tata comes now, I believe it will be able to penetrate the market very, very well, and it can give Hyundai and Maruti the run for their money.
Okay.
चलो टाटा पे डिस्कशन हो गया, आईसीएनजी पे हो गया, स्लाविया स्कोडा कोडियक पे हो गया, थोड़ा सा ईवीज का भी डिस्कशन हो गया. फाइनल टॉपिक ऑफ द डे, द हाइलक्स. Actually,
Yeah.
two final topics: Hilux and the Carens.
We will discuss dark edition later on.
अब डार्क एडिशन, अच्छा ठीक है, डार्क एडिशन का नाम ले लिया तो मुझे तो सिर्फ एक ही बात से थोड़ी सी मतलब
Hilux
खफा हूँ
and
मैं.
Karens, we will have a separate podcast because I may be getting to drive the Karens anytime. So if I get to drive it, I'll give you the opinions on that. So we will
Okay,
keep it
sure.
Hilux and Karens as a different podcast.
चलो
Okay,
ठीक है,
okay.
हाइलक्स और कैरेंस को हम अगले पॉडकास्ट में कर लेंगे एज एन एक्सटेंशन टू दिस वन.
Let us discuss the dark
अब
edition,
डार्क
the
एडिशन ही कर
marketing.
लेते हैं
हाँ,
यार.
the
यार
marketing
सीधी
strategy.
सीधी सीधी बात है, जो चीज डे 1 पे आ सकती है उसको डे 365 पे लाने की क्या जरूरत है.
वो ऐसा है,
दिख रही है,
it's
मार्केटिंग है. अगर if the system works, it works. It is as simple as
सिस्टम
that.
सिस्टम वर्क्स का क्या है, जब पहले दिन ही
भाई
मतलब जब प्री प्रोडक्शन यूनिट्स बिकना, मतलब वो टेस्ट मीडिया ड्राइव के लिए गए थे सफारी के प्राइस अनाउंसमेंट से पहले, तब
हाँ,
सब की क्या कंप्लेंट थी, कॉमन की वाइट इंटीरियर का ही ऑप्शन क्यों दिया गया है.
मार्कअप creating creating, आप क्या कर रहे हो? You are essentially trying to upsell your product. You know that if you sell it normally and if you give all the features on the go, you would not be able to get as much money as you can if you try to upsell all the standard
क्यों
features that they do.
क्यों
And this is an industry standard. This is not something
नो
that is very
नो
new.
नॉट इन
However,
नो
अरे
आई वुड
बोलने तो
डिसएग्री.
दो भैया मेरे,
एक
एक
मिनट
मिनट तुम बोल देना. नहीं नहीं,
मुझे
बस लेट मी तो
डिसएग्रीमेंट है.
फिनिश ना.
अच्छा
हाँ
ठीक
है,
है, करो.
तुम्हारा डिसएग्रीमेंट है. यू पुट योर पॉइंट क्लियरली. बोलने तो दो यार तुम. ये मार्कअप वाला इशू है, ये चीज अपसेलिंग वाला है, और ये लोग करते हैं, ये कॉमन चीज है. बात ये है कि इट ऑब्वियसली इट सीम्स पॉइंटलेस, कि क्या मतलब है, इसका कोई लॉजिक नहीं बैठता. बट इफ द कंपनी इज एबल टू make more money and have more revenue and increase their profit margin, then they would not look for something that is logical. Yes, please go ahead.
अच्छा, मेरा से ये हुंडई को देख लो, ऑल वेरिएंट्स, ऑल गियर बॉक्सेस, ऑल इंजन्स, राइट फ्रॉम डे 1. महिंद्रा के रीसेंट लॉन्चेस को देख लो, ऑल वेरिएंट्स, ऑल गियर बॉक्सेस, ऑल इंजन्स, राइट फ्रॉम डे 1. क्या कहते हैं, होंडा को देख लो, ऑल मतलब जो लास्ट सिटी लॉन्च हुई थी और जो अमेज फेसलिफ्ट आई थे, सारे इंजन सारे गियर बॉक्सेस डे 1 से थे, सारे वेरिएंट्स डे 1 से थे. तो जब सब ये कर रहे हैं तो टाटा को मतलब अच्छा स्कोडा का ही देख लो, स्कोडा वोक्सवैगन का देख लो, 1 लीटर 1.5 TSI, 3 वेरिएंट्स, सबके सब अवेलेबल राइट फ्रॉम डे 1 ऑफ द लॉन्च. तो फिर क्या कहते हैं, तो फिर मुझे एक चीज है कि जब टाटा का जो प्री प्रोडक्शन यूनिट्स का मीडिया ड्राइव हुआ था, तब जब एक कॉमन कंप्लेंट आई थी कि सिर्फ वाइट इंटीरियर का ऑप्शन नहीं देना चाहिए, और क्या कहते हैं, आई बिलीव कि सफारी और हैरियर एक ही प्रोडक्शन लाइन पे बनती है, तब हैरियर डार्क बीइंग इन प्रोडक्शन क्यों नहीं, क्या कहते हैं, मतलब टाटा ला पाई।
You're
ऐसा
not
तो है।
understanding the psyche of doing a car business, Tanmay. If you remember, after the Safari media drives happened in the last moment, there was an adventure persona variant that was launched after a month, which had this brown tan interiors, right? Number one. Number two, like I said again, every company has a different way of doing a business. Okay. अगर तुम सब कुछ एक साथ लॉन्च कर दोगे, फिर आने वाले 1 साल 2 साल के लिए अगर तुम्हें थोड़ा सा प्रोडक्ट में एक इंटरेस्ट लाना है, राइट, तो क्या करोगे? मैं ना एक तुम्हें क्लासिक एग्जांपल देता हूँ, i20 का मैं एग्जांपल देता हूँ, ठीक है? i20 ने सब कुछ अपना ठोक दिया, मैनुअल, ऑटोमेटिक, IMT, TCT, CVT, पेट्रोल, डीजल, टर्बो, व्हाटएवर इट इज। सेल हुई उतनी गाड़ी की? नहीं हुई। अल्ट्रोज में ऑटोमेटिक नहीं, फिर भी अल्ट्रोज ज्यादा बिक रही है। क्लासिक एग्जांपल ऑफ दैट। नंबर टू, Hyundai has actually lost interest in marketing its small cars. Okay, if you see Hyundai, N-Line की मार्केटिंग जीरो है, बिक रही है फिर भी। सैंट्रो की मार्केटिंग जीरो है, बिकॉज इट इज नॉट सेलिंग, दे नॉट हैविंग इंटरेस्ट। ओके, कंपनी का ना अपने आप ही इंटरेस्ट खत्म हो जाता है प्रोडक्ट को मार्केट करने से, जब उनको लगता है ठीक है हमने सब कुछ एक साथ दे दिया। अब तुम अगर टाटा को देखोगे, अभी लोगों को पता है कि सफारी है, ठीक है, अब तुमने एक नया वेरिएंट लिया तो एक प्रोडक्ट में एक रिन्यूड इंटरेस्ट आ गया, राइट? अब XUV700 देखो, यू ऑलरेडी नो दैट द व्हीकल इज ऑन अ 2 years वेटिंग पीरियड, so Mahindra can sleep and not spend much on marketing, whereas Tata knows that our Safari is struggling, so they have to keep interest with the product. So this is a different strategy of keeping interest on the product so that my factory is running. इफ यू नोटिस, इन्होंने हैरियर पे भी ऐसा कुछ फीचर्स नहीं दिए हैं जो सफारी में दिए। पहले इन्होंने वायरलेस चार्जर ऐड किया, फिर वायरलेस एप्पल कारप्ले डाला, वेंटिलेटेड सीट्स डाला, बिकॉज they were getting a profit on Safari is more than getting a profit on Harrier, right? And Harrier is already 3 years old in the market. So logically, the Harrier, they are, I think if they're happy selling 2,000, 2,500 units of Harrier, they shouldn't focus that much. Whereas they seen that Safari कभी ज्यादा कभी कम बिक रही है, तो उनको लगता है ठीक है ये ले आते हैं। I'll tell you one thing, when gold edition came in, a lot of people said it looks very vulgar, right? Now this vulgar edition is actually selling a lot in places like UP and Bihar because people like these kind of flashy editions. They don't care which company is giving all this, right? They honestly now don't care. सफारी का कस्टमर जो 20 साल पहले था और जो आज, उसमें जमीन आसमान का फर्क है। तुम अगर कुछ भी किसी भी नाम से ले आओ, उसमें वल्गैरिटी डालो, वो बिकनी ही बिकनी है, राइट? होंडा सिटी पहले कौन लेता था? कॉर्पोरेट कोनेसियर लोग लेते थे, पीछे बैठ के जानने वाले चेयरमैन इस टाइप के लोग लेते थे। आजकल तो होंडा सिटी कोई भी ले सकता है, मतलब राइट फ्रॉम फुकरा टू अ सो कॉल्ड कोनेसियर कैन बाय अ होंडा सिटी। तो द क्लास ऑफ पब्लिक हैज रियली चेंज्ड. You need to sell whatever you could. You need to make your factory run. You need to feed your employees. You need to pay salaries. You need to do business. तो हर कंपनी का अलग अलग तरीका होता है बिजनेस करने का। ओके, इफ यू लॉन्च एवरीथिंग एट वन गो, यू लूज इंटरेस्ट। अब अल्ट्रोज में ऑटोमेटिक नहीं है, ठीक है, इट इज अ मिस्टेक, ओके, बट देन व्हेन यू लॉन्च द ऑटोमेटिक राइट नाउ, यू पुट इन ऑल दैट बuzz on a 2-year-old product. It means you're safe for the next 1 year. Then you launch something, then you're safe for the next 1 year, right? Then you launch your refresh, mid-cycle refresh. Then you are safe. So if you see the cycle of Tiago, पहले गाड़ी आई, उसके बाद में AMT आया, फिर उसमें XZ Plus आया, फिर उसमें Wiz आया, फिर उसमें JTP आया, फिर उसका फेसलिफ्ट आया, फिर उसमें अभी CNG निकाला। So अब ये देखो कि प्रोडक्ट इज ऑलरेडी इनटू इट 6th year into the market. 6th year means technically product should see a new generation, not just a facelift. Whereas since the product life cycle of mostly Tatas and Mahindras is up to 10 years, 8-10 साल तो वो रखते हैं, तो प्रोडक्ट पे इंटरेस्ट रखने के लिए ये इनकी स्ट्रैटेजी है। अभी
महिंद्रा तो
महिंद्रा
20 साल चला
धीरे
देती है।
धीरे, अभी देखना ही आने वाले टाइम में मारुति भी कोई कम नहीं है। मारुति भी कुछ ना कुछ करती रहती है, कभी स्टिकर डालेगी, कभी कुछ करेगी, कभी कुछ करेगी, कभी कुछ करेगी।
वो
तो
स्टिकर ही
अगेन
डालते हैं और
डिपेंड।
कुछ नहीं डालते, वो स्टिकर ही डालते हैं, उसके आगे नहीं रहते हैं।
सेलेरियो स्पोर्ट क्या था, वो एक्स था।
सेलेरियो एक्स थी।
अरे तो जैसे स्विफ्ट आरएस निकली थी या ये सब, जब स्टिकर डालने से बिक सकती है तो दे आर प्रोवाइडिंग एटलीस्ट अ न्यू ट्रिम ना। तो इसमें इशू
स्विफ्ट
क्या है?
स्विफ्ट
सी
का
वॉट
लिमिट
एवर सिद्धार्थ
स्विफ्ट का
भाई इज
एनिवर्सरी
सेइंग।
एडिशन था। स्विफ्ट का एनिवर्सरी एडिशन था। स्विफ्ट का ग्लैम एडिशन आया था, एक वो ब्लैक कलर का, वो गोल्डन स्टिकरिंग के साथ।
हम्म। हाँ
एक
तो
आया
जब
था
वो
बेंच सॉन्ग, एक आया था आरएस, एक आया था
हम्म
ग्लोरी, और एक आया था तुम्हारा वो डेका पिछले वाले में, दैट नंबर 10 वाला। चार तो मुझे पता है।
ग्लैम भी था
हाँ
ना,
तो
2008-9 की बात है।
हाँ, वो तो पूरा वाइट वॉश इंटीरियर के साथ था।
हम्म।
तो ये है टाटा, तो एटलीस्ट दे आर प्रोवाइडिंग अ न्यू ना। वही तो सेम चीज दैट वाज आई वाज ट्राइंग टू एक्सप्लेन एज वेल, जो सिद्धार्थ भैया हैज प्रेजेंटेड इट मोर एलोक्वेंटली। इसमें what you have achieved the relevancy of your product. You have been able to sell the same product of same value at a higher price, ensuring that per
Yeah.
product you are able to get a bigger revenue margin, a bigger profit margin. And see, this is something that is standard in industry, that has been practiced for a very
The
long time.
only the
हमारे भी
only
लॉजिक नहीं, but it is not something that is grossly so long. ऊपर से one more thing, like Siddharth bhai mentioned, एक एक करके when you bring something, not only you are bringing more relevancy, you are also able to manage the costs. आपने प्रोडक्ट पे R&D किया है, आप मार्केट पे जा रहे हो, आप मार्केट का सिचुएशन देख रहे हो, एंड यू आर सेइंग दैट यस द कॉम्पिटिटर्स आर प्रोवाइडिंग, एंड because of those features we are having some sales loss. In order to compensate for that, then we will add new products. If they are seeing that adding something new does not does not necessarily help us, or removing a certain feature does not necessarily impact us, we will not add the product or remove the product. Huh. Shreyas, you were saying something.
हाँ, I was just saying कि adding a ventilated seat and charging वाला thing is a different thing. What I personally feel कि just for a black color, because it is just a color, एक कलर के लिए they are doing so much of hype. बस ये एक चीज है दिमाग में. Now if you are going to buy ऑक्टाविया और कैरॉक, और सॉरी जो कुशाक की बात कर लेते हैं, अगर उसमें ब्लैक कलर अवेलेबल होगा तो आई थिंक वो सेम प्राइस में अवेलेबल होगा. कोई ट्रिम के हिसाब से प्राइस वेरी करेंगे, कलर के हिसाब से नहीं करेंगे. टाटा मोटर्स की स्ट्रेटेजी दूसरी है, वो अलग बात है. तो जस्ट फॉर अ कलर दे आर क्रिएटिंग sort of unnecessary hype, which in a way is
Harrier के
working.
समय पे
हाँ,
yeah, sorry to
हैरियर के
interrupt,
समय
but
पे
the question.
टू टाइम्स दे हैव लॉन्च्ड डार्क एडिशन, टू टाइम्स.
हाँ,
हम्म
वो कोई
और
सेंस, वो नहीं, बट वो कोई
नहीं
सेंसिबल चीज नहीं है।
बिकी की नहीं बिकी, ये बताओ।
बिक बिक तो रही है, बट यू नो आप
बिकने को तो
डार्क.
गोल्ड एडिशन भी बिक रही है, लेकिन सेंसिबल
हाँ,
चीज थोड़ी है, वो है तो
हाँ.
वल्गैरिटी
हाँ,
वो भी।
तो वही तो बात है। अभी तो इसका मतलब जो सिद्धार्थ बाइक ने बोला, यू हैव नॉट लिसन टू एनीथिंग।
नो
नो,
नो
आई डिड
वी.
लिसन टू हिम। वी आर नॉट सेइंग,
तो वो
वी
क्यों
आर वी आर वी आर जस्ट एक्सप्रेसिंग आवर डिसअपॉइंटमेंट,
नो नो
आवर
इट इज
रिसेंटमेंट।
all
कि
these
क्या
things
कहते
are
हैं?
working for them. Like in marketing strategy is working for Indian
हाँ,
audience, but आप खुद बताओ नीरज जी, will you spend around 50,000 extra just for a color जिसमें फीचर्स लगभग सेम मिलने वाले हैं? आप
एक
बताओ.
मजे की
है.
बात
मैं
बताता
तो नहीं
हूँ।
करूंगा।
अभी ये सिर्फ प्रैक्टिकली देखा जाए, टाइगुन और कुशाक और इसमें से इलेक्ट्रिक फोल्डिंग मिरर हटा दिया गया, ठीक है, इसका ऐसा पतंगड़ बनाया गया है जैसे कि बहुत बड़ा डील ब्रेकर है। एक बटन दबा के शीशा बंद करना वर्सेस गेटिंग डाउन एंड यूजिंग योर टू हैंड्स टू क्लोज अ मिरर इज नॉट अ बिग डील, राइट? इट इज जस्ट मेकिंग यू मोर लेजियर. If just for this small thing you're going to forgo a superior engineered product, then you are an idiot. मैं एक मजे की बात बताता हूँ. When the W204C class was launched in 2008, right? उसके शुरू के मॉडल्स में भी ऑटो फोल्डिंग मिरर नहीं था, जबकि 203 में था. उसके चक्कर में सेल वेल को कुछ कुआ नहीं है, कार स्टिल सोल्ड, राइट?
ये इस कार को लेके भी टाइगुन कुशाक के ऑटो फोल्डिंग ओआरवीएम्स का जो जो मतलब बात का बतंगड़ बनाना या हु हुआ जो मच रहा है ना, वो सिर्फ टून बीएचपी पे मच रहा है। मैं ओपनली नाम लेता हूँ, टीम बीएचपी पे हो रहा है ये सिर्फ। उसके फोरम पे जाके देख लो, वही है नहीं तो रियलिटी में क्या कहते हैं, जाके ग्राउंड लेवल पे चेक कर लो। यार एक बात बताओ मुझे, क्या चीज ज्यादा जरूरी है, एप्पल कारप्ले, एंड्रॉइड ऑटो रन करने वाली टच स्क्रीन ज्यादा जरूरी है, फिर क्या कहते हैं वो ऑटो फोल्डिंग मिरर चाहिए, जो क्या कहते हैं जो कभी मतलब लाइफ में क्या कहते हैं शायद एक आध दो बार फोल्ड करने पड़े हम।
देखो ऐसा है कि ये तो चीज हर जगह है ना। एक्चुअली कंपनीज के साथ ये प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, प्रॉब्लम है लोगों के साथ। नाउ इफ यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट 6 एयरबैग्स दैट आर अबाउट टू बी मैंडेटरी हो जाएंगे ये 6 एयरबैग, बट कोई इनकी
नहीं
बात
वो
नहीं कर रहा
अच्छी
है कि
चीज है, वो अच्छी
नो,
चीज है।
बट स्टिल यू नीड टू हैव अ स्ट्रांग बॉडी इन वाइट। आई थिंक सिद्धार्थ भैया एंड अनिरुद्ध दे वुड एग्री कि बॉडी इन वाइट अच्छा होना चाहिए। 6 एयरबैग कितना तुम्हें बचा लेंगे? 6 एयरबैग से होगा क्या? मारुति विल ऑफर दैट सेम शिटी हार्टेक प्लेटफॉर्म विद 6 एयरबैग्स। एक्सीडेंट उसमें भी होंगे और अननेसेसरी प्राइसेस विल गो अप अननेसेसरी।
एस्प्रेसो में 6 एयर बैग डाल लो, क्रैश टेस्ट कर लो, तब भी 0 स्टार आना है।
करेक्ट पॉइंट है, करेक्ट पॉइंट।
वही बात है।
जहाँ
और
तक बात
अननेसेसरी
जहाँ तक
गाड़ी की दाम बढ़ेगी,
हम्म,
अननेसेसरी
बढ़ेगी।
गाड़ी का दाम बढ़ाना है, तो कौन सी
हाँ, तो
स्ट्रेटेजी
कंपनी
है
को
बस।
इशू थोड़ी है, कंपनी को इशू कब आएगा? किसी भी कंपनी को इशू कब आएगा? जब कंपनी के पास पैसा आना बंद होगा। दैट इज द ट्रू स्टोरी ऑफ लाइफ। चाहे उसको
हाँ,
तुम बोलो कि सेंस बनता है, सेंस नहीं बनता है, ये होता है, वो नहीं होता, वो इट इज ऑन द कंपनी।
एक्चुअली
अगर
इंडियन
अभी
मार्केट का सेंस
अभी
नहीं बन रहा
टेंशन
है।
मत लो। अभी
हाँ,
गवर्नमेंट, आई वुड अप्रिशिएट कि अभी ये हुआ है शुरू।
हम्म,
हाँ,
साल 2 साल में तुमको स्ट्रॉन्ग बॉडी शेल भी मिलने लगेगा, डोंट वरी अबाउट
हम्म,
इट। अभी आई थिंक नितिन गडकरी, लोग उसको गालियां देते, गाली दो, लेकिन वो कुछ अच्छा काम भी कर रहा है। अगर वो नहीं करता ना तो बीएन कैप नहीं आता। ना ही तुम्हें बेस मॉडल में रियर पार्किंग सेंसर या सीट बेल्ट रिमाइंडर या 80/120 के वार्निंग्स या एयरबैग मिलता, राइट? तो अभी उसको करने दो जो कर रहा है। मैं वही कह रहा हूँ, पब्लिक गाड़ी खरीदना है, खरीदेगी, नहीं खरीदना है, नहीं करेगी, नहीं खरीदेगी। यू
नहीं
ऑलवेज हैव अ सेकंड हैंड मार्केट टू एक्सप्लोर इफ यू आर रनिंग आउट ऑफ बजट, राइट?
yes,
And you can get better cars in second hand market than what new you are able to look at. I'm talking about those 2 or 3 year old cars which people sell because they get bored out of it. You can already get a Skoda Kushaq, quite a lot of them in the used car market for a cheaper price. And Tiguan, क्या ये टाइगुन टिगवान जो भी है यार,
टाइगुन
कंफ्यूज्ड इन दिस नेम। तो ये सब भी आएंगी। इवन 1 साल में तुमको एन लाइन्स भी मिलने लग जाएंगी 10-10 लाख रुपए में। तो इट इज
अरे
ये
बात का बतंगड़ बनाने वाली बात है ये, क्या कहते हैं ये, आम जनता को फर्क नहीं पड़ता। आम जनता किसी लेमैन से जाके पूछ लो उसको अगर सच में ऑटो फोल्डिंग मिरर से फर्क पड़ता है कि नहीं। ये जो टीम बीएचपी पे कुछ कुछ है ना बंदे जो अपने आप को ज्यादा ज्ञानी समझते हैं और डिस्टिंग्विश्ड बीएचपी का बैज लेके घूमते हैं, ये उनकी
इवन
करतूतें हैं।
इवन तन्मय एंड सिद्धार्थ एंड अनिरुद्ध जी, पता है क्या, मेरा एक दोस्त है, उसके पास बहुत सारी गाड़ियां रही हैं, लग्जरी कार्स की बात कर रहा हूँ, जिसमें और आजकल तो ये कनेक्टेड कार टेक एंड वायरलेस चार्जिंग बहुत सारी गाड़ियों में आ गई है। लोग बोलते हैं हमने यूज ही नहीं किया कभी। वो बोलता है किसके पास इतना टाइम है कि यू स्टार्ट योर एसी
secondly
थोड़ा। हाँ,
secondly Zach Hollis has said he doesn't have semiconductor chips so that he can give this feature, okay? मैं एक चीज बताता हूँ अभी। if people follow the trends of Karol Bagh, lot of people who had owned Marutis और Hyundai के lower models, उस पे उन्होंने auto folding mirror add करे हैं। It is not a rocket science to add it. You just need to have a module and a connector which is a bolt-on fit onto the I think वो कहीं CM से कहीं से लाते हैं। It is hardly a half an hour job and you can do it. ठीक है?
अरे यार मेरे, मैं आई टेल यू द केस ऑफ माय पजेरो ओवर हियर इन दुबई।
कोडा
पजेरो
कुशाक में कोई बड़ी बात नहीं, तुम अभी 1-2 महीने में उसकी भी आफ्टर मार्केट किट आ जाएगी। तो जिसके
हाँ
पास ऑटो फोल्डिंग मिरर नहीं है, वेस्ट दिल्ली चला जाए, करोल बाग चला जाए, उसका भी लग जाएगा, कोई बड़ी बात नहीं। यूजिंग क्लोज टू ओईएम पार्ट्स। पोलो में एक चीज, अब जिनके पास में पोलो है, तुम एक नॉर्मल वॉक्सवैगन पोलो हाईलाइन प्लस को तुम जीटीआई बना सकते हो एस्थेटिकली। तुम उसमें फ्लिप कैमरा डाल दो, उसमें पसाट का 3 डोम का कैबिन लाइट डाल दो, उसमें जीटीआई का एलईडी हेडलाइट पूरा 2 लाख रुपए फूक के डाल दो, उसमें जीटीआई का टेल लाइट डाल दो, उसमें मैक्सी डॉट क्लस्टर डाल लो, उसमें इंफोटेनमेंट सिस्टम अपग्रेड कर लो, पिलर वाले ट्विटर वाले पिलर डाल लो, क्या क्या नहीं कर सकते उसमें, तो कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है, हो जाएगा।
अरे कुछ टाइम में खुशाक में वो जो वीडब्ल्यू का, ये स्कोडा का जो वर्चुअल कॉकपिट है ना, उसका भी रिट्रोफिट आ जाएगा। जो लोग रोते हैं ना, बोलते हैं कि वर्चुअल कॉकपिट नहीं दिया, वर्चुअल कॉकपिट नहीं दिया, उसका भी रिट्रोफिट आ जाएगा मार्केट में, देख लेना।
बेस मॉडल टू टॉप मॉडल की फिर वीडियोस आने लगेगी, सब में स्कोडा कुशाक और टिगवान टाइगुन दिखेंगे, देखना फिर उसमें वर्चुअल
हम्म।
कॉकपिट कन्वर्जन। दिस इज द वे टू रन आफ्टर मार्केट बिजनेस, राइट? अब बीच में 2 साल पोलो का इतना ये था, तो परफॉर्मेंस वर्कशॉप्स ने खूब पोलो से पैसा कमाया, खूब कमाया। अब जब पोलो का प्रोडक्शन अभी बंद होने वाला है फरवरी में, तब गाड़ियां जब इतनी नहीं होंगी, तो बिजनेस चलाने के लिए कुछ ना कुछ तो करना पड़ेगा ना। यू नीड टू lubafy the public with whatever the things you want, even if you're putting a performance filter on a diesel Tata, this Altroz, which doesn't make any sense, or lowering springs on a crossover, which doesn't make any sense, or whatever the kind of valvetronic exhaust you want to put, which sounds the same, whether it's a 3 cylinder car or an 8 cylinder car, it doesn't make sense. बिजनेस चलाने के लिए तुमको सारे ऑप्शंस मिलेंगे, टेंशन मत लो, तमाशा देखो बस।
नहीं,
अच्छा।
और क्या कहते हैं, जितने भी पोलो टीएसआई वाले जाते हैं, या जो अब मतलब पोलो टीएसआई पे परफॉर्मेंस का काम कर रहे थे, ये टाइगुन 1 लीटर टीएसआई और 1.5 टीएसआई वाली गैंग आके कराएगी। 1.5 टीएसआई वाले तो डेफिनेटली रीमैप्स के लिए जाएंगे। दैट इंजन इज वेरी मच केपेबल ऑफ डूइंग 200 odd bhp. So with
Acha,
a with
what
a
do you all think? Last question before ending this. I think we are already running out of time. What do you all think? Will VW consider a new generation Polo bringing into India after discontinuation of this current generation Polo?
जहां तक मुझे खबर है, या जहां तक मुझे सुनने को आया है, मेरे ख्याल से पोलो विल बी रिप्लेस्ड बाय अ सब 4 मीटर एसयूवी।
Okay.
हाँ, हालांकि सुनने में बुरा लगता है, लेकिन कंसिडरिंग इट्स वोक्सवैगन, आई डोंट रियली थिंक दैट इट्स अ बैड मूव, बिकॉज इट्स वेरी मच गोइंग टू बी टॉप नॉच इन हैंडलिंग, फन टू ड्राइव कोशेंट होगा, बीइंग अ वीडब्ल्यू।
Your hatchback is going to be restricted to Hyundai, Maruti, and Tata now. Rest all the players have exited the segment
एंड
because they
हाउ
don't
मेनी
see volume.
हैचबैक्स, हैचबैक भी कहाँ उतनी बिकती हैं। क्या कहते हैं, एक अल्ट्रोस को छोड़ के कौन सी हैचबैक बिकती है एक्चुअली?
बिकती है
आई
बहुत
ट्वेंटी
सारी,
उतनी,
वैगनार
Big
ऑल्टो
three.
बिकती है, वैगनार
वो
बिकती
तो
है,
ठीक है, वो एकदम ही, मतलब एकदम ही एंट्री लेवल है। आई एम
तो
सेइंग जो
बलिनो
प्रीमियम
मतलब जो
बिकती है।
हैचबैक्स की बात कर रहे हो।
बलिनो कितनी बिकती है बताओ?
उससे ज्यादा
और
अल्ट्रोस नहीं, हाँ, अल्ट्रो सेकंड बिकती है, थर्ड आई 20 है।
और
Tiago
तुम्हारी
कितनी बिकती
फेवरेट
है?
एसयूवी बिकती है, एस्प्रेसो एसयूवी, इट इज अ हैचबैक, वो भी बिकती है, राइट?
हाँ।
ग्रैंड आई 10 नियोस बिकती है, सेंट्रो बिकती है, सारी गाड़ियां बिकती है।
पोलो का इशू ये है कि the hype it has versus the number of sales it has. So that does not,
यार यार
Volkswagen is
सीधी,
not happy. Volkswagen does not care if you create hype and if you create Polo the legend. But if at the end of the day, if Polo is not creating the sales revenue that they want, then they would
वो
not be
हर
bothered
ब्रांड
to
का
do.
ही है, वो हर ब्रांड का ही है। और दूसरी चीज मैं बोलता हूँ, दूसरी चीज ये है कि क्या कहते हैं, वोक्सवैगन ने खुद गलती की है। एमक्यूबी पोलो को जब उनको 2017 में लाना चाहिए था इधर, वो नहीं लाए, नहीं तो पोलो बिकती अच्छे ढंग से। पोलो अगर आज,
ये भी
लोगों
ये
ने
भी
तो
बात।
अगर,
इंडिका को भी गाली दी थी ना, इंडिका भी देखो कितनी बिकी थी
हम्म।
अपने टाइम पे।
एक्चुअली इट वाज अ गेम चेंजर, और गेम बिगाड़ा भी था उसने, लेकिन पहले चेंज भी कर दिया था। तो
नहीं,
उसमें
पहले
ऐसा
गेम बिगाड़ा, फिर गेम चेंज किया।
गेम पहले चेंज किया। एट दैट टाइम, डीजल कार, छोटी
हम्म।
गाड़ियों में डीजल इंजन होता ही नहीं था। उसने तो रिवॉल्यूशन लाया पूरा
वो
इंडिका
तीन
तो,
ने।
लाख रुपए में
अरे वो प्री लॉन्च हाइप थी, उसके बाद तो
तीन
गेम
लाख
बिगड़
रुपए
गया।
में डीजल गाड़ी मिल रही है, और क्या चाहिए लोगों को? वही तो मैं समझा रहा था, 3 लाख रुपए में डीजल गाड़ी, तो इतने में इतने ही मिलेगा, इतने में मतलब क्वालिटी
सर,
ग्लिचेस होंगे ही होंगे।
हाँ, उतना होगा ही। और सेठ भाई की पोस्ट
सि-
पढ़ो तो तुम्हें पूरा समझ आएगा। मतलब मैंने तो पढ़ा था
सिद्धार्थ
डिटेल
भाई
में।
का, सिद्धार्थ भैया की तो बहुत अच्छा का बहुत अच्छा एनेक्डोट है। सिद्धार्थ भैया शेयर करना चाहते हो इंडिका पेट्रोल वाला, तो प्लीज आप शेयर करो, मजा आएगा वो, एक बार जरा लोग सुने भी।
क्या?
अरे क्या, कि डेवू डेवू मटीज और टाटा इंडिका पेट्रोल का जो टॉसअप हुआ था आपके घर पे,
कौन सा टॉसअप हुआ था?
कि क्या कहते, फ्यूल एफिशिएंसी की मार पड़ गई थी इंडिका की उसके अगेंस्ट, जब
अरे
लेने
हाँ,
जाने
लेने
वाले।
जा रहे थे वो। ऑटो कार लेकर आया था मैं, उसमें इंडिका 2000 का रिव्यू था. सिटी एवरेज वाज समथिंग इन 8.9 और 9 एंड हाईवे वाज अबाउट 12-13. बुकिंग कैंसिल हो गई थी.
यार
LEI बुक
देखो,
कराई थी हमने, 320 की थी उस समय. LEI एंड LXI वाज अबाउट 438 ऑन रोड. कॉनकॉर्ड सीवी में बुक कराई थी. तो वो तो इनफैक्ट मैंने ही लुभाया था पापा को. इट्स अ बिग इंजन कार, लेट अस बुक इट. बट देन लेने जा रहे थे 1400 सीसी कार, ले आए हम 800 सीसी 3 सिलेंडर गाड़ी. बट देन अगेन लाइक आई सेड, that time Matis was the best quality car you could buy for the money, quality and about engineering also. It was a good car. Nothing, I will not regret the decision. 6 years I kept the car. I still not able to find a replacement for that in the city car category. Santros के बाद ही मुझे वो मजा नहीं है जो मटीज में आता था.
बट एक बात बताना, मुझे एक बात ऐसी जाननी है कि you bought a Daewoo at a time when Daewoo's was at its heels of shutting shop in India. How did you manage to convince your father or your family in general to go for a
When
Daewoo
we
back in
bought
the
the
day?
Matis, it was not shutting its shop. We bought the car in May 2000. We booked the car in April. Okay, I'll tell you the story.
Okay.
We had actually booked the car in March, right?
अच्छा,
Uh,
okay.
the color which we booked was sky blue, and sky blue was having a waiting period of 30 to 45 days because of the limited production. Then in April, what they did was they had improved the engine with new ECU, increased compression ratio, and the NOx sensor and sequential MPFI tech. So the car improved the acceleration by 2 seconds, right? The overall driving acceleration. At the same time, the variant that we booked, they had deleted some vital features like the stereo, the mud flap, and the left side mirror. But then they did the cars that were booked in March. There were about 150 cars they made with those features uh, in the plant. And then the batch that came in from April production, they came with the reduced features, and the prices were the same. So we were lucky to get the car with a new engine and the same features just on the special request. The one thing which I liked about Daewoo, they used to take some special request very seriously. In fact, it was a very consumer driven company, dealer driven company with Evo. I do understand that their marketings were idiotic and they screwed up the car at launch, but then थोड़ा तो accommodate कर लिया था. So we got the car with stereo and the left side mirror and vanity mirror on sun visor and auto and the day night mirror on a base model, talking about how well equipped that car was. इंडिका में ना हीटर था, ना डे नाइट, आई थिंक डे नाइट मिरर नहीं था उस समय, ना वैनिटी मिरर सनवाइजर पे था, ना लेफ्ट साइड का मिरर था. मतलब यू सी लॉट ऑफ थिंग बिलो. अगेन इट्स अ प्रायोरिटी वाली चीज. You
Again, I
forbid us
think
to have a bigger engine.
yeah, Indica had the bigger engine. Shreyas has experienced a big engine Indica for a very long time, and he's faced the brunt of the mileage also.
No, it's not. See, in again, I'm saying this. उस दिन
1.2
लाइव पे
liter
मैंने
Indica Vista is not a big engine, sorry.
नहीं, इसके पास 1.4 Sapphire 90 भी इसने काफी चलाई है. मैं
हाँ
उसकी बात
ठीक,
कर रहा
सुनो
हूँ.
सुनो सुनो, नहीं नहीं सुनो. एक्चुअली है क्या ना, चलाई अलग चीज है. पहली चीज तो सिद्धार्थ भी उस दिन लाइव भी कर रहे थे इंस्टाग्राम पे. इंडिका इज वेरी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम इंडिका विस्टा. वो प्लेटफॉर्म और शायद थोड़ा सा अलग था, काफी चेंजेस किए थे प्लेटफॉर्म पे. इट वाज अ वेरी डिफरेंट कार विथ Fiat इंजन ऑप्शंस. और एक TDI मोटर उन्होंने कैरी ऑन किया था विस्टा पे. तो इंडिका और विस्टा के डायनामिक्स में और चलने के तरीके में भी काफी फर्क था, और दोनों ही कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट गाड़ियां हैं. तो उसको लोग रिलेट करते हैं बिकॉज ऑफ दैट सेम डिजाइन लैंग्वेज एंड कंफर्ट पर काफी अच्छी थी. जो भी था, मुझे लगता
The
है कि
Vista was always a boat. Vista was always a stupid handling car. Boat थी पूरी वो.
हाँ बोट थी. सस्पेंशन बहुत सॉफ्ट है उसके, और बहुत ज़्यादा मूवमेंट्स है उसके सस्पेंशन, मतलब हाई स्पीड पे बहुत ज़्यादा मूवमेंट है उसमें. एंड माइलेज कंसर्न्स, अगेन दिस 1.2 लीटर इंजन, इट्स नॉट अ बिग इंजन. मेरे पास बहुत लंबे समय से वो है. 1.4 पहले निकाल दिया था. 1.2 लीटर का जो सफायर इंजन है, उसमें फ्यूल एफिशिएंसी का बहुत बड़ा कंसर्न है। एक्चुअली ये पूरे सफायर में फ्यूल एफिशिएंसी का ही कंसर्न रहा है, मतलब 1.4 में भी था, 1.2 में भी है। और अब इनके पार्ट्स भी नहीं मिलते हैं, इवन इन टाटा मोटर सर्विस सेंटर पार्ट्स नहीं मिलते हैं जल्दी। तो यही है कि इसलिए मुझे लगता है कि लॉन्ग रन में ये प्रोडक्ट्स उतने सर्वाइव भी नहीं कर पाए। और जब उन्होंने रेवेट्रॉन को भी 1.24 सिलेंडर में निकाला था, वो भी उतनी नहीं कर पाए। टियागो में 3 सिलेंडर कर दिया एंड दे आर नाउ कंटिन्यूइंग विद दैट इंजन। इन नेक्सॉन आल्सो विद अ बिगर टर्बो किट 120 bhp निकाल लिए, वही 3 सिलेंडर यूज कर रहे हैं। तो टाटा के
The
जो पुराने
Revotron 4-cylinder that the Bolt and the Zest had, it has no relation with the Tiago engine. That engine was basically the same block of the Indica Zeta, right?
ओके,
1193
आई वाज
cc
नॉट
का
नोइंग
ब्लॉक
दैट।
है,
आई वाज
जो उसका था ना 1193 सीसी का इंडिका जीटा का ब्लॉक था। उसमें उसका टॉप हाफ अलग था, टर्बोचार्जर एंड द डिफरेंट इंटरनल्स, and
ओके।
that again dated its roots to the diesel block of the Indica. So it was a heavy engine, right? पेट्रोल में अगर हेवी इंजन्स का तुमको एक्सपर्टीज चाहिए, यू कैन ओनली रिलाई ऑन फिएट, वो टीजेट और 1.6 जो पेले थे ना, all that which both my cars have. Those are something which were engineered in the early 90s, right? After that, it was all about
Like
aluminum block,
those
aluminum head
1.6
and everything.
1.6 वाले।
हाँ वही वाला जो Fiat के 1.2 और 1.4 fire engine से that have always been a compromise. In fact, the 1.4 fire engine is known to consume engine oil prematurely. उसमें वो issue भी reported थे कई गाड़ियों में, right? तो they were not the best of the engines. Besides, I've driven the Indica 2000 also. I've driven the Indica V2 petrol also. The 2000 was a very unrefined and a very crude engine. It was a very fast car, okay. 14 seconds करती थी, 13.8 14 seconds to 100 करती थी उस समय. At a time when Zen used to do 15 seconds to 100. The V2 petrol was under 14, but V2 petrol had a bigger 16-bit ECM and different fuel injection system. I think it had by Bosch. The earlier one was by Hitachi. It had, I think, either by Bosch or by Delphi. I need to check that. उस पे वो था. And then जो इसका BS3 आया था V2 petrol का, that had got a 32-bit ECM because to meet the new emission norms, right? Then came the Zeta, which had 5 HP less, but it had more torque at a lower RPM. So they changed the complete top half of the engine. उसका तुम वो लेआउट देखोगे, इंजेक्शन लेआउट वो अलग रहेगा जीटा का, और जो उसके पहले जो पेट्रोल आता था इंडिको पेट्रोल जो है.
तो
Plenty of changes were made every 2 years or every year to the petrol engines, and even that they didn't sell it well. जितना सक्सेसफुल इनका पहले तो उनका सक्सेसफुल पेट्रोल था नैनो, then this Tiago and the following engines on the Tiago, like the Revotron Turbo, which is there in the Nexon, which was there on the JTP, which is there on the Altros, ये इनके सक्सेसफुल हुए हैं एक्चुअल में. इसके पहले इनके पेट्रोल्स इतने सक्सेसफुल नहीं थे.
अच्छा सिद्धार्थ जी, व्हाट डू यू थिंक कि अगर ये जो रेवेट्रॉन 1.23 सिलेंडर का इंजन है, अगर उसका रेवेट्रॉन 4 वाले से उससे कोई रिलेशन नहीं है, तो आई थिंक टाटा मोटर्स एट दैट टाइम बिफोर लॉन्चिंग जेस्ट दे वर लाइक मेकिंग अ हाइप ऑफ दिस 4 सिलेंडर इंजन व्हिच वाज हैविंग मल्टी ड्राइव मोड्स एंड इस पे बहुत ज्यादा R&D किया है, इन्वेस्ट भी किया है और सब कुछ किया है. तो क्या वो तो एक तरीके से पूरा वेस्ट हो गया, फिर उसको बनाया ही क्यों था? एंड आई थिंक जितना मैंने रिव्यूज देखा, आदिल जल दारू खाना वाला हैज रिव्यूड दैट जेस्ट ऑन जी बिजनेस चैनल, मुझे याद है. तो ही वाज लाइक
I
सेइंग
had
कि
driven a petrol Bolt for about 2,500 kilometers. I had that car with me when I was in Himachal, posted in Himachal. उस गाड़ी में ऐसे कमी कुछ नहीं है. If you drive it on a daily basis, it has got an excellent low down torque, right? 140 Nm torque at 2500 RPM is still a lot. The only thing was that they just took, see, the only thing it shared with the Zeta was the engine block, right? Pistons, crank casing, turbocharger, everything was different. So they had invested a lot on that. But then again, the Zest and the Bolt were stopgap products before this new this Tiago Tigor Nexon that they came in. That time, that was a time when Tata was going through a tough phase of transitioning. वो तब था जब इनके पास में इंडिका, इंडिगो, सुमो, सफारी, नैनो के अलावा बेचने को था ना. The dealerships were struggling to sell cars. So they had to come up with something, and even the Vista and Manza were dwindling in sales, right? So they quickly had to come up something till the new products were ready under a new management to keep the dealerships happy. So that was a stopgap product. And the Zest has been a good car. There's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with the Zest. If you look at the Zest, it was a very good sub 4-meter sedan for its time.
It was a heavily modified X1 platform car. X1 platform Vista से ही आया पूरा, उसको काफी अच्छे से.
Correct.
हाँ,
Correct.
उसको अच्छे मॉडिफाई करके लाइक उसकी
The
हैंडलिंग में
X1
काफी वर्कआउट.
platform the X1 platform was originally designed to meet all the European crash test norms. That is why you see most of the cars were sold at a loss, and
Yeah.
that was the sole reason why Nexon got a 5-star rating, and it's a safe car. That platform itself is a European crash test worthy platform. If you see, if you have seen the body of Indica Vista, it is a very heavy body.
Yeah,
उसका
yeah,
अंदर का वो देखोगे ना, बॉडी इन वाइट, उसके उसमें जो
yeah.
वेल्ड स्पॉट वेल्ड्स करे हैं, प्लस इफ यू ओपन द डोर्स, इफ यू ओपन द फायर वॉल, इट इज अ वेरी थिक फायर वॉल. So all the Indica Vistas that were being sold at that pricing, they were being sold at a loss in the market.
Yeah. And then also failed. So I think Siddharji, you will post more about Indica Vista in coming times, or after Indica you will move on to something else.
I may not be covering the Vista. See, again, it depends on how much I intend to cover, because already it is a very long story, made even more longer because there are so many things happening at the Indica times. मतलब इतने variants आए, इतने सारे इन्होंने changes करे. So we had to tell people that what all went behind this गाड़ी जिसको unnecessarily media ने बदनाम किया था. We're just telling the story behind it. Nobody knows that 42,000 cars were called and 42 components were replaced on the pre-V2 cars, right? See, कंपनी तो बोले, लोग मीडिया तो बोलेंगे ये गाड़ी बेकार थी, ये था वो था. I was, in fact, when I started this series, I was sent many PMs citing that what you are covering is a nonsense, it's a stupid car. But then we need to understand that not every car is stupid. If I start to write a story on a Toyota Corolla which doesn't make sense, when you know why that car sold for 16 years and 3 different generations, you will come to know why that car made sense, right? It depends from the point of view of a story writer. How do you interpret something, what he is trying to portray? Okay. मैंने एक एग्जांपल देता हूँ तुमको, सुभाष घाई का मैं एग्जांपल देता हूँ. He was a very good director, film director, right? He used to make movies like Kali Charan, then he made Saudagar, then he made Pardes, and then he made Tal. Okay. But then when he wrote the script of Yadein 2001 में जिसकी मूवी आई थी, हाइप बना दिया उसने, म्यूजिक निकाल दिया, अनु मलिक का संगीत थोप दिया, म्यूजिक निकाल दिया, इमोशनल वो बोल के उसने इतना कुछ कैसेट पे छाप दिया. मैं थिएटर पे मूवी देखने गया, 3 घंटे कैसे रुलाए उसने मेरे को पता. इट वाज एब्सोल्युटली द मोस्ट पैथेटिक मूवी आई एवर सॉ इन 2001. आई सॉ लगान, आई सॉ गदर, आई सॉ दिल चाहता है आल्सो. It was not a Subhash Ghai movie, it was a 3-hour entertainment movie of Coca-Cola. That was what it was. Just like Fir Bhi Dil Hindustani was an ad film of Hyundai and Swatch and Pepsi. वो जो भी था उसमें, अगर किसी ने मूवी देखी होगी तो, जिसमें सैंट्रो में स्टंट्स करता है बार बार एक्सेंट को, और पता नहीं Honda CRX को Hyundai CRX बोलता है शाहरुख खान. Such is the idiotic thing being told in that movie, right? ये बकचोदी बहुत हुई थी उस टाइम पे. So that was how we make our audiences understand through Instagram or through other sources कि सच्चाई क्या है और मीडिया क्या बोलती है. I can even make a bad car sound good. I can even make a good car sound bad. It depends on how you are interpreting, or how is your mind, what is the
हाँ
mood of the mind in captivating the
yeah
audience? Just like you see flippers in Kerala selling Zen carbons for 4 lakh rupees for nothing.
हाँ आई मीन टुडे ऑल्सो इफ यू सी जैसे जो इनका रेवेट्रॉन का जो भी सीरीज का इंजन है उसको एक बैड प्रेस भी मिली कि लाइक इट लैक्स पावर एंड लैक्स एवरीथिंग इवन फॉर द आई टर्बो मेनी जर्नलिस्ट केम एंड से कि it is no different from the standard version of Eltros. But again, after driving, because I've been driving these, Tata cars nowadays, Punch and all, and for longer duration, I realized कि इनमें जो लो एंड टॉर्क जो चाहिए होता है एंड फॉर डेली सिटी कम्यूटिंग जो सिटी में हमें शुरू से पिकअप चाहिए होता है इट इज एनफ एंड इट इज गुड इट इज इवन बेटर देन सम मारुतिज एंड जो जिनमें लो एंड टॉर्क उतना होता नहीं है और
Japanese
तो
engines का weakness ही low end torque रहा है हमेशा. If you drive any Japanese car, you will always have this low end torque का weakness, right? Second weakness is that just to overcome that inconsistent power delivery, the weight of the car is reduced. Why is the Maruti? It seems as if you're going fast, whereas it is not fast. It is because of this only. The engine is already weak in terms of the low end torque, so to negate that, they reduce the weight of the car so that it pulls less, right? Secondly, again, the Power Drift has published a video of doing a drag race between an i20 turbo, was it an IMT, I think, and the Altroz i-turbo. एक रेस में तो i20 हार गए, एक रेस में i20 जीत गए. But just look at the timing that the Altroz put, under 12 seconds.
वो i20 DCT थी.
अच्छा
हाँ वो i20 DCT थी.
See, अगर आप वैसे मतलब मैं मार्केट में फ्यू ऑब्जर्व ना कि लोग बोलते हैं इट लैक्स पावर. मैं जब पंच चला रहा था तो वहां पर मुझे एक मिले जो इग्निस के कस्टमर थे तो उन्होंने बोला कि जरा लाना मैं चला कर देखता हूँ एंड आफ्टर ड्राइविंग ही सेट कि यार इसका तो पिकअप जो है इग्निस से भी बहुत ज्यादा बेटर है एंड आई वुड कंसीडर दिस बाइंग दिस टाटा पंच बिकॉज ऑफ इट्स इंजन कैरेक्टर एंड पिकअप. सो एक होता है कि व्हाट मीडिया पीपल आर टॉकिंग, एक होता है कि व्हाट यू आर एक्सपीरियंसिंग एंड व्हाट कस्टमर्स आर सेइंग. तो दोनों में काफी फर्क है. प्रैक्टिकली दीज इंजन्स आर नॉट मेड फॉर रेसिंग एंड 0 to 100. और मैं हमेशा से ये बोलता आया हूँ डूइंग 0 to 100 विदाउट एनी कॉन्टेक्स्ट डजंट मेक एनी सेंस. ये जो नए नए उसमें आ गए हैं लाइक 0 to 100 कार को जिस चीज के लिए वो बनी नहीं है उसको टेस्ट ही क्यों करना है. 0 to 100 इज नॉट अ इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग. हाँ एक पैरामीटर है कि उतने उसमें हो सकता है, दैट्स अ डिफरेंट थिंग, बट कस्टमर के लिए वो
Tanmay
जरूरी
should
चीज नहीं.
share the video if I don't have that video saved. Tanmay एक बार वो videos को देना, the one which I took of the Datsun Redigo AMT. How
वो वीडियो मेरे पास भी नहीं पहुंची है, भेज देना मुझे, जरा देखना है मुझे.
how aggressively we did. I think उसमें 100 हमने 13 seconds के नीचे किया था. Redigo AMT की बात कर रहा हूँ मैं, 1 लीटर वाला.
अच्छा
Commuter.
AMT में
हाँ गाड़ी मेरे पास आई थी, उसके अफनान की गाड़ी थी, जेके नंबर की. उसको हमने बड़ा अग्रेसिवली लॉन्च किया. द पॉइंट इज दैट you need to know how to launch a car, then you can post in good timings, right? If you are buying an N line, ऑलरेडी बदनाम है वो DCT के चक्कर में. you're not buying it for drag racing, you're buying to enjoy it around the hills and the curves and the track.
yeah
Their
of
0 to
course.
100 doesn't matter. That is their in-gear thing, and the power delivery matters a lot.
Yeah, I think Siddharth भैया these things ये कवर ही नहीं करते और कस्टमर को या जो सो कॉल्ड जर्नलिस्ट हैं वो किसी और तरीके से प्रोजेक्ट करते हैं चीजों को. अब वो
अरे
पहाड़ पर कैसे चल रही
i20 का बोलते हैं ना कि उसका मतलब 0 to 100 टाइमिंग बेकार है, 0 to 100 टाइमिंग बेकार है. यार उस गियर अगर उससे अच्छा 0 to 100 टाइमिंग निकालना, यू विल हैव टू शॉर्ट शिफ्ट. वो ऐसा गियर बॉक्स है. ये पावर ड्रिफ्ट वालों ने खुद ये बात बोली है.
हाँ मतलब कि आपने दिखाना क्या है, जैसे कि वो बोलते हैं ना कि आजकल जो जर्नलिस्ट टेस्टिंग भी करते हैं मीडिया ड्राइव पे, वो बहुत ज्यादा एक्सटेंसिव टेस्टिंग करते नहीं है. तो वो अपने हिसाब से इंप्रेशंस को बनाते हैं और बोलते हैं. तो ये है जो हो रहा है. लेट देम स्पीक व्हाटएवर दे वांट.
20 years back, if you had read automotive magazines, उसमें जितने भी routers थे, they were covering 2,000 kilometers, 3,000 kilometers, 1,500 kilometers on an average, right? बिकॉज उस समय जर्नलिज्म ज्यादा जगह स्प्रेड नहीं हुआ था, मैगजीन्स भी तीन चार थे गिने चुने, प्लस मीडिया इतना बड़ा नहीं था, सो द मैन्युफैक्चरर्स वर फ्री टू गिव लिमिटेड कार्स टू अ लॉन्गर ड्यूरेशन. आजकल मारा मारी इतनी है, लाइक एक एक गाड़ी के पीछे में 500 लोग भागते हैं, 500 लोगों के लिए तुमको टाइम निकालना पड़ता है, स्लॉट देना पड़ता है, गाड़ी देनी पड़ती है, तो कहाँ पे क्वालिटी रहेगी? नहीं है वो क्वालिटी. 1500 किलोमीटर का रिव्यू सिर्फ आजकल 100 किलोमीटर का होता है. 100 किलोमीटर में तुम कितना कंक्लूड कर लोगे? कुछ नहीं कर पाओगे. दैट इज व्हाट दैट
हाँ.
मार्केट इज, राइट?
Yeah. So I think Tanmay, today we had enough of discussion. So we
हाँ,
should conclude this.
2 घंटे हो गए हैं. क्या कहते हैं, काफी लंबा चल गया डिस्कशन. On that note, I would like to thank all my audience who joined in, and I'm also thanking the guys who watched this video later on our platforms, be it Instagram, be it YouTube. अब अगला पॉडकास्ट मोस्ट लाइकली आई विल ट्राई कि एक हम कल शाम को करें, कुछ और डिस्कस करने के लिए. नहीं तो यू कैन जॉइन अस ऑन फ्राइडे वंस अगेन, तब होगा. एंड एज फार एज द डिस्कशन रिगार्डिंग Kairens and Hilux goes, we'll do it once Siddharth Bhaiya drives both the cars. मतलब जब जो गाड़ी चलाएंगे उस हिसाब से डिस्कशन करेंगे. और अपनी जो ईवीज को लेके डिस्कशन होती रहती है, वो तो थोड़ा बहुत हम हर उसमें ही करेंगे. Thanks a lot for joining in. Thank you, Siddharth Bhaiya. Thanks, Anirudh Kaushik. Thank you, Shreyas. And on that note, we'll take your leave. Goodbye, good night, stay safe, and take care.
Thanks.